So guys, welcome. What if Naruto was sent to the HighSchool Dxd by Phenex God movie? Kuo Academy was one of the most famous schools of Japan, and is considered as the costliest school in the world. Therefore this school was only attended by richest of individuals, and it was also a supernatural school which housed devils from very prestigious families like the Gremory and the Citri families. In fact, these families were responsible for the founding of Kuo Academy. At present, a red-haired devil was thinking deeply and was worried to some extent because of a recent call which she got from her brother, and by the tone of his voice the problem was pretty serious, but she didn't know what the problem was exactly. She was just informed that she needed to keep her evening free for a meeting with her brother. Akeno Himiyama was the queen of Rias Gremory, and she was her dear friend since childhood, and she had never seen her king with such a deep expression. She knew that Rias got a call from her brother, and she also knew that he was visiting later in the evening, but what she didn't understand was the reason for so much anxiety in the club. New members of the peerage like Issei and Asia were freaking out because of the forlorn expression on their king's face. "Is everything fine, bucko?" questioned Akeno, since now even she was worried for Ria's health. Other members of the peerage were listening closely to the conversation between their bucko and queen. Even Kaneko took a break from eating her sweets. "I am just worried about the meeting with my brother. It seems pretty serious and he didn't give me any details," replied Rias with the same worried expression. "I am sure it won't be that bad, right?" asked a clueless Issei. "I am not so sure, Issei. Bucca's brother is the Lucifer of Underworld and the strongest among the 4 kings of Underworld. If he is asking for a meeting, it must be quite serious," answered Yuto Kiba, the knight of Ria's peerage. After hearing this, both Issei and Asia gulped and were freaking out about the impending meeting with the Lucifer of Underworld. Issei was even more afraid because he didn't even knew that Bucca's brother was the king of Underworld, but he didn't dare to voice his concerns since the atmosphere was quite thick. Before anyone could ponder more on the subject, a bright light invaded the room of Occult Research Club and a symbol of Gremory family appeared on the floor. Rias knew immediately that her brother had arrived for the scheduled meeting, and just like that her brother and his queen, wife stood before her peerage. Issei seemed shocked to see a man who looked like a man version of Rias, which meant no large tits, so he was disappointed, but after looking at the other woman he was rejuvenated since she had very large boobs and she was incredibly beautiful with her silver hair and silver eyes. She was wearing a French-made outfit and her hair was made in a twin braid style. "You are early, Ni-sama," sated Rias. "So what is so important that you would visit the human world? It's unlike you." "Ah. Rias-tan, are you not happy to see your Oni-sama?" replied Sears X Lucifer childishly. Rias now sported massive tick marks on her head. Clearly she was annoyed by her brother's behavior, but before she could take any actions against her brother, Graphia had already started to pull her brother's cheeks. "Why can't you act according to your stature? Is it really that hard for you to act maturely?" chastised Graphia with a scolding tone. Issei and Asia were quite shocked to watch someone like the Crimson Satan acting so childishly and then getting scolded by his maid. They would have laughed if Bucko didn't have such a forlorn expression. After getting hit by Graphia, Sertius finally decided to mention his concerns. "To tell the truth, even I don't know what the problem is, but the Phenex family asked us to meet immediately here in Kuo Academy. They seemed very concerned. We believe that it has something to do with your engagement, but only they can confirm our assumptions." After hearing this, Issei looked scandalized. For him it seemed as if his world came crashing down. Rias herself was barely controlling herself from lashing out at her brother. By gods, she hated her soon-to-be fiancé. He was the lowest of scum. She would rather die than marry someone like Riser Phenex. Akeno herself was quite angry with how things turned out with Bucko and Phenex family. Even Kiba and Kaneko seemed quite concerned for their king. "What? Bucko is engaged? When did this happen?" Before Issei could go on with his rant, another bright light invaded the halls of the Occult Research Club. This time the Phenex symbol appeared on the club room's floor. Kaneko whispered, "Phenex family." Every member of Rias peerage were on high alert after they recognized that it was the symbol of Phenex family of devils. They expected to be greeted by the notorious playboy of Underworld aka Riser Phenex, but they were surprised to be welcomed by a man and a woman who seemed to be in their late 20s or early 30s. The male had blonde hair and dark blue eyes. He had a height of around 6 feet and had a decent build and donned a very noble aura. The female was around 5 feet 7 in and had a wavy blonde hair with 2 ponies which had a drill-like curled shape. The front of her hair has several bangs hanging over her forehead, with a V-shaped fringe hanging over the bridge of her nose. Akeno and Rias easily recognized the individuals as the Lord and Lady Phenex of the Phenex group of devils. Lord Phenex was the clan head of the above-mentioned group of devils and was one of the most influential devil in the underworld. Rest of the members took some time to remember the newly arrived devils, whereas Issei and Asia had no clue whatsoever and were unable to recognize these distinguished individuals. Lord and Lady Phenex-sama, it's an honor to meet you here. I just wish that it could have been under better circumstances, Rias said with a noble and a monotonous voice. It's a pleasure to meet you to Rias-san, and there is no such need of formalities between us, replied Lord Phenex with a little hearty voice. Same here, concluded Lady Phenex. Rias gave a small smile and asked, what's the matter, Phenex-sama? Why have you called for a meeting in Kuo Academy of all places? Now all the attention was diverted to the Phenex household members. Even Sir Sez and Issei were listening carefully to what they had to say. Lord and Lady Phenex showed a very melancholy expression. None of the devils who were standing there missed their heartbroken feelings. Even Rias was now afraid of the situation, even though all the training she went through to always keep her calm in dire situations. Keeping calm was a necessary attribute to become a successful king and to win a lot of rating games. After a minute of total silence, Lord Phenex finally lifted the thick atmosphere by sharing his concerns. Before I speak of my issue, I want a promise from all of the devils here that they won't speak of this issue with anyone else. I want a commitment from everyone here on their honor. We assure you that whatever you speak of will not leave these four walls, Lord Phenex-san, replied Sir Sez with sincerity in his tone. All the members of Rias Peerage nodded their heads to show that they will keep their promise. After watching everybody take an oath, Lord Phenex continued with his concerns. What I want everybody to know here is that Riser Phenex is not my youngest son. With that he dropped the bomb. What? Sirzex screamed, and he was also donning an unnaturally serious face. Before Sirzex can continue with his rant, Grafia started to pull his cheeks rather painfully. Sirzex-san, keep your cool and let Phenex-sama finish his concerns. Sirzex started whining rather pitifully, whereas everybody from Rias Peerage sweat dropped because of the so-called Crimson Satan's behavior. Lord Phenex coughed a little to get everybody's attention back. As I was saying, Riser Phenex is not my youngest son. 13 years ago we adopted a little boy named Naruto. He was only 3 years old at that time, but when he turned 6 he just disappeared. By this time Lady Phenex was openly sporting tears. Clearly she was worried for her son. After watching his wife in that state, Lord Phenex couldn't control himself and went to provide some support for his wife. He just gave us a letter describing that he had something important to do, that he wanted to get strong, and then he disappeared with his evil pieces, just like that. We spent a lot of resources trying to find him, but it was as if he disappeared from the three worlds itself. We had every reason to believe that he was killed by someone on his travel, continued Lady Phenex. Sirzex and Grafia now had a little idea of their problem. Now they understood their pain a little, cause there was no way they could understand fully the pain of losing a son. Everybody donned very sad faces. Even Rias felt sorry for them, even though they were the one responsible for her impending engagement with that scum of a devil aka Riser Phenex, but they were not the only one to blame for this. Her parents were equally responsible for this mess. But after 10 years we finally got an info from a reliable source that he was alive and well. Lady Phenex finally showed some relief on her face. Rias was glad for the Phenex family, but what she didn't understand was how she was related to this giant mess. I am glad for you, Lady Phenex-sama, but how am I related to all this? Before Lady Phenex could answer Rias, Sirzex interjected her. I believe I can answer that, Lady Phenex-san. To put it simply, Rias, the contract between the Phenex and Gremory family clearly stated that you would be married to the youngest son of the Phenex household, but since Riser is no longer the youngest son in the Phenex household, you can't be married to him. Rias was stunned after hearing her brother say that. In fact, everyone in the peerage was stunned. Akano and Kaneko were glad that their best friend, Bucko, wouldn't have to marry a scum like Riser. The red-haired buxom devil was so happy that she was congratulating herself and was literally dancing in her mind. However, after some time the reality of the situation hit her hard. To tell the truth, nothing had changed for her. Now she was being married off to some other guy who she didn't even knew, and then there was also a possibility that he was even a greater scum than Riser. Although for now she was out of the harm's way, that is why she decided to not voice her concerns, at least for now. So let me guess you want us to get him back from whatever hole your son is hiding, retorted Issei with a condescending tone. To put it simply, yes, said Lord Phenex. So do you have photograph of your son? Asked Grafia, maintaining her manners unlike someone. Yes, we do have one, but it's an old one when he was 6 years old. With that, Lady Phenex gave a small photo to Grafia. Everybody looked at that photo and they saw a healthy kid with spiky blonde hair. He had bright blue eyes. He was wearing a black shirt and white short and was giving a peace sign with his fingers. Everybody had a single thought that this Naruto kid was incredibly cute when he was a kid. Finally, after Rias observed that photo for some time, she said with a smile, even though he is adopted, he looks like a phoenix. To this both the parents gave a genuine smile and gave a small nod. So where is he? Pressed Searsex. He was getting impatient, he really wanted to meet this kid. Well, we believe that he is in Vatican City. With that, Lord Phenex dropped another bomb. Everybody had single thought. You got to be shitting me. Vatican City is the smallest country in the world with only an area of 44 hectares and with a population of meager 842. This holy city is ruled by the Bishop of Rome, who is also known as the Pope to the public and the believers in biblical God. All this is common knowledge and anybody can find it on the internet, but what everybody doesn't know is that it is the main base for the holy or celestial beings, commonly known as angels, so it is right to say that any devil or fallen angel who steps in these holy grounds are as good as dead. However, all these threats on life didn't matter to someone who had seen far worse in his life, and has survived and flourished in even harsher environments. These kind of people were very less in the three factions, and Naruto Phenex was one amongst them. In fact, he was the best amongst them. At present, Naruto was deep underground in the Sistine Chapel. These were one of the many bases from where he operated and provided safe haven to his peerage. Since who would think that they would find their enemies in their home turf right below their nose? Anyways, it would be unbelievable that someone had a secret base right under the Pope's residence, which is the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican City. Naruto was only wearing an ambu black pant with arm guards and was destroying dummies with his taijutsu katas and was not using any chakra to power his punches and kicks. If anyone would have seen him, then they would have seen his hands blur when he punched each dummies with such precision that even an archer might feel jealous. He defined the definition calm when he did his daily workout, but today he was anything but calm. Memories of his past still haunted him. You are my living legacy. Naruto used chakra this time and he moved so fast that he was a blur and all the dummies broke apart behind him. He was finally done with his taijutsu training, but then he donned a very somber face instead of being happy for achieving his goal. He could still remember his brother's sacrifice, his last words. You are my living legacy. Flashback. Madara and Kagaya were finally defeated after a battle which lasted 3 days, but this battle which he was fighting right now was the toughest one, because now at this moment he was fighting his brother in everything but blood. He knew that it was their destiny to fight to death since they were the descendants of Hagoromo's 2 sons, Indra and Ashura. They were supposed to fight each other to death just like Hashirama Senju and Uchiha Madara. Today, on the day of his birthday, Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha were also going to fight each other till only one man was standing. He wanted to change this destiny so much, but Naruto knew that this fight was unavoidable. He was no longer the same naive boy who thought that he could end the war all alone and that he would be able to change everybody's mind. Sasuke was now beyond any kind of help. He had captured all the 9 bijus by using Chibaku Tensai, planetary devastation, and had enslaved them in massive moon-like rocks. He now knew better than anyone that there was no reformation for his brother and that it was his responsibility to see to it that the bijus got their freedom and that the elemental nations achieved peace which was based on love and understanding instead of force and hate. We are finally at the Valley of End, where we fought last time and I was the victor, stated Sasuke without demonstrating any kind of emotions. We don't have to do this, Sasuke, we can talk this out. Naruto insisted with clear desperation in his being, but even he knew that they were way past talking. There is nothing to talk about, we will settle it with our fists. Naruto gritted his teeth, then have it your way. With that they charged at each other, to settle things for once and for all. Flashback. And Naruto was now doing Salmon's ladder in his base. This was the last part of his today's workout, and was one of the toughest exercise in the world for humans, but he wasn't thinking about his training or all the sweat which was present in his body due to his intense workout. The only thing which he could think about was his 13-year-old battle with Sasuke and its dire consequences. You are my living legacy. Naruto was now gritting his teeth and he fell down from the rod and gave an animalistic growl, scream to the heavens. Why Sasuke? Why? These were the only thoughts which disturbed his mind right now. Flashback. They have been fighting each other since last 6 hours and they were at their end of the duel. Both Naruto and Sasuke had used everything in their repertoire, including full-body Susanoo, tempestuous god of valor, and 9-tail Kyuubi mode, but they were equal in all terms. Why wouldn't you just go down, Naruto? Screamed Sasuke with desperation and anger visible as day in his voice. Sasuke was in a terrible state. His white shirt was completely damaged and he was punctured in his left shoulder by highly pressurized water from one of Naruto's jutsu, which he was sure that he got it as a gift from Naidem Hokage before he passed on from his Edo Tensai form, Impure World Resurrection. He also sported some chakra burns from his opponent's pure chakra-based attacks. I can't go down, not after reaching this far. We are now so close to peace, I can see it. Naruto gave a grin with so much confidence that it could have moved mountains. Although even he wasn't faring any better, his orange jacket was ruined and he also had a puncture through his left shoulder from one of Sasuke's Chidori, 1000 birds, and also sported second-degree burns from Sasuke's various fire jutsus. This is the end, Naruto. Sasuke bellowed with uncontrollable rage and started to concentrate on creating an enten, Kagetsuchi, Inferno style, flame control, in his hands. Naruto saw black fire coalescing around Sasuke's right hand and it was generating an incredible amount of heat. A bead of sweat rolled down his forehead. Kurama. Are you ready? Naruto asked his lifelong friend. Damn right I am. Go for it, kid. Kurama retorted back with a massive grin. Naruto returned his enthusiasm by creating a Rasen Shuriken in his left hand and he made his attack bigger and deadlier by mixing it with Kurama's chakra. Sasuke. Naruto. They charged at each other with their massive attacks and the whole world was blinded by bright light when these two titans collided for their final and the last time. Naruto had been rendered unconscious because of the aftershocks of the last attack, but he woke up after some time and his entire being was aching. He felt like he himself was a massive bruise and at present there was nothing in this world which could increase his pain, but he was wrong about that. The second he saw Sasuke's condition, a gasp came out of his mouth. His entire right hand and some part of his internal organs were totally annihilated by his last jutsu. He was bleeding from his mouth and severed right limb uncontrollably. In other words, he was in a worse place than Naruto. Naruto barely had any strength to run towards him and help, so instead he decided to crawl toward his brother. After a minute of tiresome work he finally reached Sasuke. Just hold on, Sasuke, Sakura will arrive any minute and she will heal you. Naruto wheezed out. After hearing that, Sasuke stared, chuckling, ha. 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 Ha ha ha. Come on, Naruto, you and I both know, I am already a dead man. Sasuke started to cough because of all the blood in his mouth. Cough cough. Anyways, this is what I always wanted. Naruto's eyebrows rose when he heard the last statement. What? You were always like my brother Itachi, moving ahead of me, guiding me, and never breaking our special connection with each other. All this time, Naruto, I envied your strength, your drive to do anything for your precious person, and even today was no different. Your strength surpassed mine. You protected me till the end. I should have been the one guide. After all, I am older than you. But I will make necessary amends for you and our precious peace, which we achieved after spilling so much blood. Naruto was crying openly now. His tears spilled on Sasuke's face. He was holding pressure on the severed limb so that it didn't bleed out. Just stop talking, Sasuke. I beg you. Naruto desperately demanded from his passing brother. He didn't want him to die. Kurama was watching a live feed from his cage, but he didn't want to interrupt his goodbye speech even though he was an Uchiha. From now onwards, Naruto, Sasuke brought his left hand and poked on Naruto's head and said, "You are my living legacy." With that, Sasuke took his last breath. No. Naruto screamed about this injustice to heavens. The yin symbol of power was transferred from Sasuke to Naruto. Naruto could feel incredible amount of power within him. He could feel Sasuke's power in him, but before he could even mourn properly, the 9 satellites holding the tailed beasts started shining brightly and a large wave of chakra hit him like a tsunami and he started to change and his eyes started bleeding. Naruto was in so much pain that he was rendered unconscious. A space-time portal appeared behind Naruto and he fell into it. He was never seen again in the elemental nations. When Naruto finally woke up, he realized that he was in an entirely new dimension with no friends and with no strengths to protect his feeble 3-year-old body. Flashback. And after relieving his greatest nightmare, Naruto had some stray tears on his cheeks, but after 10 years of isolation, Naruto had finally understood why Sasuke chose to give him his powers in the end. You wanted to keep your younger brother safe, didn't you? Naruto voiced himself. He closed his eyes and whispered with a smile, "Thank you for everything, Sasuke." Then Naruto opened his eyes, but instead of having his original bright blue eyes, these eyes were crimson in color and had 3 tomos circling over a central pupil. These eyes were the legendary Dujutsu known as the Sharingan, the copy wheel eye. Few hours earlier, Sirzex was unnaturally serious for the first time in his life, and he had every reason to be serious since they were going to infiltrate the Vatican City, the main base for the soldiers of God, aka angels. He was sitting in a chair while all the rest of the devils, including the Rias Peerage and Phenex household matrons, were sitting in a circle around the Satan King, and were staring at the map of the Vatican City. Sirzex pointed at the outer boundaries of the Vatican City and said, "Vatican City is a fortress, with high security, but even after all the security against devils it's not impenetrable. Everyone were listening to him attentively. The first line of protection which we have to overcome is the walls which surround the entirety of the Vatican City, hence the name Fortress for the Holy City. Our sources say that Naruto's base is just below the Sistine Chapelle. Searsex asserted the words Sistine Chapelle. This time everybody who knew about the Sistine Chapelle raised their eyebrows, which included Rias, Akeno and Ossia Argento. This is crazy, Ni-san. Sistine Chapelle is the residence of the Pope. It's always protected by a legion of angels, and hence it can't be breached. Searsex raised his right hand to stop his sister's rant, and it had an immediate effect. If it was any other day then it would have been true, but the Vatican City is going under a process called papal conclave. Issei was getting frustrated by the minute. He hated this tense atmosphere and he didn't even understood anything which Rias' brother was spouting. What is Papacon, cave? Everybody's sweat dropped. You really need some help, thought Rias, but then she decided to answer his question. Papal conclave is the process by which a new pope is selected, when the previous ones die or resigns from their position. That's the only thing which Issei could say since general knowledge wasn't his forte. According to the rules, during this time the chapelle could only be attended by Christian cardinals, who are responsible for the selection of the new Bishop of Rome, aka the Pope. So we will be able to get through the second line of defense, but how are we going to get through the walls, which will surely be made out of condensed holy energy, and we will also be not able to use our demonic energy, since they will surely sense it. Akeno pointed the problems out with an inquisitive expression. Graphia gave a small smile and said, "That's very perspective of you. We have already made preparations to overcome that problem. We have borrowed a device from Ajuka-san by which we will be able to hide your energy signature, and he also has a contact inside the Vatican City, who will help you to teleport inside the Vatican City without any problems," concluded Searsex with a genuine smile. We can't let a big group of devils to infiltrate the Holy City. The group should be highly talented and small at the same time. Lord Phenex addressed his concerns for the first time. Searsex started to rub his chin and said, "You are right. That is why it will only be a group of 5, which will include my sister, Akeno-san, and the Sekirayute, then my pawn Beowulf-san and Queen Graphia-san. I am glad that you are being generous enough to join your peerage in this mission. I am really thankful." Lord Phenex gave a genuine smile. Searsex took out some bracelets and gave it to Rias. "Akeno, Ice and Graphia, these bracelets will conceal your energy, wear it right now." All of them followed his instructions immediately. All of you should proceed to Vatican City immediately, since papal conclave has already started. Beowulf will join you later. Your mission is to retrieve Naruto Phenex alive by any means possible. This is my chance to get rid of Riser for once and for all. Rias thought with a determined face. All the members of the mission walked to Graphia and a teleportation circle arrived below their feet and they disappeared from the room of Occult Research Club. Below Sistine Chapel, Naruto was already done with his training. Now he was just sitting in the lotus position to meditate and control his vast amount of chakra and magic. His chakra was unlimited, but his magic still needed a lot of work, even though he had very high reserves somewhere around low-level Satan King like Seraphol Leviathan. It would still take some time before he would reach the level of Searsex Lucifer. In the past decade his biggest achievement was in the field of chakra. After receiving the yin element from Sasuke, his chakra control was easily around the level of Hagoromo or even Kaguya herself. The biggest benefit of having both the yin and yang release were the easier access to bloodlines of elemental nations, and it also made mastering those elements faster. His peerage was also incredibly helpful for his training. Without them he wouldn't have achieved so much in just a span of 10 years. He was trying to understand magic, but he still needed some professional help in this field. He also needed to contact his peerage as soon as he was out of Vatican City. They had just completed their missions, and he also wanted to introduce his queen to the rest of his peerage, since she was new on the team. While he was still pondering about his new duties, he suddenly felt someone intruding his base. "My base has been infiltrated by some devils," Naruto mused, but then he gave a massive shit-eating grin. "This is getting rather fun, and I also wanted to try some new techniques." He knew that within minutes they would be here, so he wore his white long-sleeved shirt with the symbol of Phenex clan on his back. His shirt was open to show a large amount of his chiseled chest. He also wore a blue cloth over his black pant, which was then tied to blue rope-like belt, and put his sword of Kusanagi attached to his back using the very same rope. He also wore his black Ambu-style boots. In other words, he donned the exact same look of his brother, and he also wanted to look presentable when his guests came to greet him. Therefore there was not a way in hell he was wearing orange. "They are already here," thought Naruto. As soon as the thought came to his mind, The wall in front of his training room blasted and a man in his mid-20s with brown hair presented himself. He was a little too bulky. Naruto knew that he was Beowulf from Lucifer's peerage. This is going to be a lot of fun. What can he say? He was really bored. A few minutes earlier, the group of devils had met with Beowulf, who was already there in Vatican. As soon as the introductions were done, they decided to head for Sistine Chapelle. Things were going great until they entered the base of this mysterious boy known as Naruto Phenex. The base was a fucking maze. It was difficult to maintain a sense of direction. It was only because of Greyfie's amazing sensing ability that they were able to maintain their course. It was absolutely necessary that they were out of this hellhole before an hour, because as soon as Papal Conclave was over, this chapelle would be flooded by angels. I found him. We have to be cautious because there is every possibility that he has already sensed us, Greyfie mentioned with a stern tone, making the others in the group flinch. He should NT be much trouble. He is the same age as Bucko-san. I am pretty sure that all of us can take us. Issei suggested with a grin. Greyfie's eyes narrowed and she gave a scathing glare to Issei. We know nothing about him. It's best to not underestimate him. Understood. She is scary. Issei nodded his head as fast as he can. Rias and Akeno heard the conversation and couldn't help but feel pity for the poor guy, whereas Beowulf just snickered. Greyfie was in an absolute bad mood. The reason was not Issei, but it was the runaway son of the Phenex family. She sensed his magical power and it was humongous. It possibly matched or surpassed hers. This is just not possible. He is just a boy. He should NT have such scary magical power. Greyfie now donned a big frown. Beowulf saw Greyfie frown and he thought, what is the big deal, Greyfie? A Phenex should NT make you worry this much? He is right behind that wall. She pointed the wall to Beowulf. Beowulf gave a massive grin and charged his right hand with demonic energy and charged at the wall. Hole in the wall. The entire wall came crashing down. Rias, Akeno and rest of the group followed the brown-haired man. Beowulf-san has insane strength and he is not even a rook, Issei whimpered after watching the crazy demonstration. As soon as Rias, Akeno and Greyfie saw the person standing in front of them, they sported a massive blush. After 10 years Naruto had become incredibly handsome. His hair was messy and had 2 bangs of hair reaching his narrow jaw, but at the same time it suited him amazingly. His body was well muscled and looked as if it was made by marble, and also had well-defined 6-pack abs. He didn't even hide those sexy abs. His bright blue eyes watched everyone with such intensity that it made Rias, Akeno and even Greyfie to be conscious of their looks. By all that's holy, how can there exist such a specimen of a man? Were the common thoughts of Rias and Akeno. I don't have the luxury for those kinds of thoughts, at least not now. With that she controlled her instincts and this clearly showed her experience as a fighter. Issei managed to watch the small moment between the women and see he is one of those handsome boys, and started crying anime tears. Naruto stared at all the occupants in his training room and was not giving any kind of emotions. This in turn made everyone nervous. Then suddenly Naruto vanished from his position and hit Beowulf so hard that he went flying backwards. He is so fast. The thoughts of all the group members were the same. Greyfie was the only one who reacted on time and sent a load of ice crystals at Naruto, but it was for naught. He again vanished at incredible speed and was just a blur to Greyfie. Beowulf had just managed to recover from that strong hit, but before he could go to help Greyfie, the monster of a Phenex appeared in front of him and he unsheathed his sword and stabbed him in the shoulder. Beowulf just gritted his teeth. I am numb, it must be a holy sword. Beowulf thought alarmingly. Naruto sheathed his sword in the scabbard and then looked towards other devils. Beowulf grabbed his wound and started panting. Greyfie was giving a scathing glare to Naruto. Rias had already coated her hands with the power of destruction, and Akeno started to chant a lightning spell, whereas Issei was scared as shit. This guy is crazy strong. Issei had a batshit scared face on his face. Before Rias and Akeno could get their spell ready, Naruto appeared in between them and kicked in Akeno's face, and then he took a turn in the air and jammed his knees in Rias' gut. Naruto unsheathed his sword to give a final blow, but he wasn't allowed that courtesy because of a giant ice spear which came at high velocity with every intention to pierce his heart. However, he caught the spear and destroyed the spear with his bare hand. Akeno was unconscious in a corner, although Rias was conscious. She was bleeding from her mouth and was panting, recovering from the punishment. I am going to kill you for doing this to Bucko, Issei growled. Boosted gear. Issei finally activated his boosted gear. Naruto just raised his left eyebrow and then he gave a dark aura from his eyes. He is annoying, thought Naruto. Beowulf was still panting and was also paralyzed by the sword of Kusanagi. This kid is a monster in hand-to-hand combat, thought a worried Beowulf. This mission was a simple retrieval. Even though the target was to be retrieved from Vatican City, he never expected to get his ass kicked so soundly. He was powerless for the next precious few minutes. Grafia was just watching the fight right now, and wanted to see how the Securitate performed against Naruto. She knew that the whole battle could be avoided if the misunderstanding was cleared, but the second she read Naruto's magical power, she knew that now it was necessary to ascertain the limit of his power, since he might very well be a threat. Naruto stared at Issei with the same dark stare. "You will kill me?" Naruto mocked. This boy was full of openings in his stance and he was going to kill him. Was he serious? Naruto disappeared from his position and appeared right in front of Issei and took hold of his shoulder. "I didn't even saw him," thought Issei. Even though Naruto was holding Issei's shoulder, he wasn't even looking at him. Instead his eyes were focused on Grafia. "All this time you were alive on my whim. Now I will take your life at my whim," said Naruto without any emotions, and he unsheathed his sword from his scabbard. Ria's eye widened when he heard her supposed future husband say that. She ran towards Issei with all her strength. "I am not going to make it on time," thought a scared and panicked Rias. She didn't want to lose her pawn and friend. Issei couldn't do anything. He flinched because of the fear to die. Naruto was about to stab Issei when suddenly Grafia appeared on right side of Issei and took a hold of Naruto's wrist, hence preventing Issei from getting stabbed. Naruto was a little surprised to see her move that fast. She didn't seem like a speed-oriented devil. Grafia never used that kind of speed, since it put a heavy strain on her body, and she was not a knight but a queen with large magic reserves. She couldn't use her magic in such an enclosed space. Rias thanked heavens for the timely interference of her sister-in-law. "That's enough, Naruto Phenex-san. We are not here to fight, instead we are here to take you back home, to your parents," informed Grafia with a cool mind. Naruto's eyes narrowed and he said, "You should have said so sooner, then this fight could have been avoided." "I am sorry," she said with same cool tone and released his wrist. "Let's get out of here before the papal conclave ends," Grafia commanded with a stern tone. Beowulf had finally managed to get rid of his paralysis, and then he went to fetch Akano, who was still unconscious. Rias was glaring at Naruto's back with so much hate that he would have vaporized if a glare could be lethal, whereas Issei was so scared that he was sure that he will be getting nightmares about today's day for a week. Finally, everybody grouped in front of the teleportation circle which Grafia created and vanished from the Vatican City. The retrieval mission of Naruto Phenex was a success. Sirzex had been waiting in the occult research club with the Phenex Patriarch for over 3 hours, and to tell the truth all of them were getting worried for their friends and the success of the mission in general. The stakes were high, and there was a possibility that if the complications were not handled delicately, then it would cause an international incident with disastrous consequences. Even though it was just a retrieval mission, there was a possibility of things going south because of the numerous variables in play. Remaining members of Rias Peerage realized that, hence they were constantly fidgeting and were clearly worried for their fellow members of the peerage. They had every right to worry about them, since the retrieval of the package was supposed to happen in the Vatican City, which is the main base of angels, the nemesis of devils. Sirzex had sent 2 of his peerage members to see to it that the mission went without a hitch. It shouldn't be taking this long for Grafia for just a retrieval mission of a 16-year-old devil who is only adopted by the Phenegs, mused a worried Crimson Satan Lucifer. At best he should be a high-class devil, and someone like Grafia and Beowulf can easily take care of someone of that caliber, if they prove to be a trouble. Crimson Satan mused further. Sirzex narrowed his eyes and gave a side glare to the unaware Lord Phenex. Maybe he is hiding something about his son. There must be something special about him, or else why adopt him? Lord and Lady Phenex were also getting incredibly worried about their son's health. Unlike their other children, Naruto had not received any kind formal training from their family, and he was holed up in a place which was very hostile for any devil. They also had so many questions for him, and they expected an answer. What kind of son just leaves one day without leaving any kind of good explanation? Definitely not a good one. They already had a disappointment for a son in Riser Phenex. He was way too arrogant and had every possible bad habit a juvenile can have. After heart-wrenching gap of time, a bright light invaded the room of the Occult Research Club, and a teleportation circle of the Gremory family appeared on the floor to reveal the face of 5 members who were responsible for the retrieval of Naruto Phenex, who were accompanied by our very own blonde hero. Sirzek's worried expression instantly turned into a frown when he saw the state of his family, peerage members. In layman's term, everybody except Grafia looked like shit. What the fuck happened? Even the rest of the members of Rias Peerage were alarmed after watching the terrible condition of their king and queen, but before they could run towards them and help them, Sirzek stopped them with a glare. All of them got the message. It was not the time to let emotions control you. The second Lady Phenex saw Naruto, she ran towards him and gave him a tight slap on his right cheek and then hugged the life out of him. She was crying tears of happiness. Finally, after a decade, her son was returned back to her. For her, this was the happiest day. Nobody dared to interrupt them, not even Searsex. Even he knew not to poke the mama bear. I missed you too, Ka-san. Naruto replied with a true smile. He was glad to be home. You have grown a lot. When I first met you, you were like only 2.5 feet. But now you are easily around 6 feet in height. Lady Phenex said with pride. I guess thanks for the compliment, Naruto said with a sweat drop. Rias watched this scene and even she felt little sad for Lady Phenex, and she also got to see Naruto in a new light. At present he didn't seem like a guy who almost killed everyone on her peerage just a few minutes ago. It was like he was able to turn his emotions on and off like a switch. That thought scared her even more. He was acting like a killing machine back in Vatican City when he was beating the crap out of them. Now he was a loving son. Rias gritted her teeth when she remembered her shameful defeat at the hands of Naruto. He took her down with a single hit and then proceeded to take down the rest of her peerage within seconds right in front of her eyes. She started to clench her fists so hard that it turned white. I was unable to do anything against him. Issei was also lost to melancholy and his own powerlessness, whereas Akeno was still unconscious. Lord Phenex gave a nod to Naruto, which meant welcome back. Naruto returned the nod back and went to his father to have a little chat with him. After few minutes of small talk between father and son, Searsex donned a smile to cover his own restlessness and interrupted them and said, Naruto-kun, would you mind to go to another room with Rias peerage? I would like to have some talk with your parents here. Searsex made it sound like a request, but in fact it was an order. He also said it loud enough for everyone to hear it. Rias and her peerage had already started moving into other room. Naruto always got annoyed when someone gave him any orders. He wasn't the type to follow orders, but he didn't want to cause any more troubles. He was already in deep shit with the beating he gave to his retrieval team. That is why he complied. After 2 minutes there were only the Phenex patriarchs. Searsex and his peerage were also present in the occult research club room. What do you want to talk about, Searsex-san? I still have to ask so many things from my son, retorted Lord Phenex, who clearly didn't want to have this conversation. Searsex asked with a strict tone, why did you adopt Naruto-kun, Phenex-san? Adoption rarely ever happens in a family as powerful as yours. In fact, it is frowned upon. Both Lord and Lady Phenex got incredibly nervous after Searsex asked the question, and they knew he was not going to budge until he got a satisfactory answer. After some time they collected themselves and said, when we first met him he was bleeding incredibly and was unconscious in our garden. We thought that he was going to die, but then miraculously his wounds started healing rapidly right in front of us like a phoenix, and he also looked so much like a phoenix that we couldn't ignore it. Lord Phenex concluded with a sigh. After he woke up we questioned him about his wounds, but he never told us anything. The boy was too traumatized to say anything about the unfortunate incident, added Lord Phenex. Then we adopted him into our family, and we were also in great need of a strong son. For us it was like heavens were being merciful. We have lots of hope for him, said Lady Phenex with a calm tone, but everyone could see the fire in her eyes. Clearly, your son is strong. He managed to harm so many of our people, including my king's pawn and sister. Graphia replied with a chilly tone. That is not possible. He received no kind of formal education or training from our family. He should be strong enough to defeat a group of devils with such a promising future. Lady Phenex pressed since the logic was found. Lord Phenex was now petting his chin and was trying to make sense of the situation since it was deteriorating by the second. Something might have happened to Naruto during his self-imposed exile. Before we make any kind of conclusions, I and Beowulf would like to debrief the mission. It will make the situation clear, which will allow us to get to a rational decision, suggested Graphia with her usual stern maid mode. Graphia and Beowulf started to explain things which occurred in their last mission. Phenex matron and Searsex first listened out in curiosity, and then their eyebrows shot up because of astonishment on the young Phenex's accomplishment. You got to be kidding me. Graphia. Do you mean to say that he was able to defeat an entire group of devils by himself? Searsex asked with his jaw hanging on the ground. All facts pointed that he should be this powerful. This raised even more questions. Searsex thought that some angels might have interfered for this much damage to happen, but clearly that was not the case. Even Lord and Lady Phenex were left speechless. They only had one thought: what have you been doing for the last 10 years, Naruto-kun? He was able to take us down systematically by using only his physical prowess and his holy sword. I believe he was using the legendary Kusanagi. That in itself raises lot of alarms. Beowulf said with a grave and shameful tone, since he was again reminded of his quick defeat against that monster of a Phenex. Sirzex was thinking of various scenarios to take care of the situation, and he was drawing a blank, but one thing was clear: this kid should be put under surveillance no matter what. He is so much of a threat, we know nothing about him. After the biblical god's death, some devils showed some affinity to light magic, but to able to wield something like Kusanagi was entirely new thing. You could have easily avoided the problem by just asking him to come back with you to home. Why didn't you do that, Graphia? Asked Sirzex to satiate his growing curiosity, because she didn't act like a good leader, which was unlike her. He would often make bad decisions, but Graphia never made an uneducated move. Now all attention was on her, even Beowulf was looking at her for an answer. Graphia gave a sigh. It was because of his magical power, she stated. What about his magical power? Questioned Lord Phenex. It was humongous, maybe even greater than mine, which easily puts him in the low Satan level, so the second I sensed such massive reserves, the mission was no longer just a retrieval, but this mission gained another objective, which was to gather intelligence on our target. Explained Graphia to the best of her ability. Now all of them were dumbfounded after hearing Graphia say that. To hear someone so young have such reserves for magic. It was unreal. Both of the parents were incredibly proud, and at the same time their son's unreal progress raised alarms on their conscience and mind. Since, power came with a price tag. I also have reasons to believe that what he showed us in Vatican City barely scraped the true depth of his power, since he didn't use any kind of magic against us, and even then, if not for me, none of us would have come back alive. Added Graphia with a grave tone. He is the strongest Phenex in the recent history of Phenex family. He is stronger than Phenex San's oldest son, Ruval Phenex. One thing which I am absolutely sure of: his immense physical capabilities, which he demonstrated in our fight. To tell the truth, it was more of a massacre than a fight. Said Beowulf with a shame clearly visible in his voice. We also don't have any idea of the identity of his peerage members. Added Beowulf, since he was pretty sure this Naruto kid's companions were anything but powerful. Sirzex and Graphia were now thinking of all the changes the Phenex's youngest son would bring, and they didn't like it. Naruto was a variable of which they had no idea whatsoever. Everything about him was shrouded in a veil of mystery, and whatever they were able to procure about him were made on half-reliable facts. This made them uneasy. The parents of Naruto were glad for his achievements in last decade. At present they didn't care about anything, since after a long time their son was home. That's all mattered. They didn't want to think too much and ruin the joyous mood. Nevertheless, their mood was ruined by Sirzex and his queen's next statement. Your firstborn son is soon going to be promoted to the ultimate class devil, and then suddenly you claim to have a younger son who appears donning the colors of Phenex proudly on his back, said Sirzex with a suspicious undertone. Who is at present considered as strong as a low-level Satan. No matter how you see it, Phenex clan will be receiving a lot of attention in the future. Finished Graphia for her king with the same undertone. After hearing that, Lord Phenex gritted his teeth and fire started coming out from the entirety of his being, and he snarled, Are you accusing us for his disappearance? Do you think I would do that to my own son? Banish him and tell him not to return until he is strong enough. Even Lady Phenex's eyes were now as cold as ice. How dare he insinuate something like that? Sirzex brought both of his hand in upright position to show that he surrendered and didn't mean any disrespect by bringing his thoughts into open. I mean no such thing, Phenex San. But you have to agree that Phenex San, your son's timing appears suspicious, and other families might feel threatened by it. They might take actions which might be unsavory. After hearing Sirzex say that, he calmed down, but the atmosphere was still tense in the Occult Research Club. Sirzex really didn't mean any harm, but he had to be sure about some things, since this man was going to marry his baby sister, and as far as first impressions go, Naruto really didn't get any points for that from Rias. At present Rias might hate Naruto more than Riser for nearly killing her pawn. Naruto didn't just try to kill Issei, but he went further and humiliated him. Rias considered her peerage a part of her family, and to nearly lose Issei to her so-called future husband might have really shook her core. What a mess has this turned out to be, thought Sirzex. Maybe we can talk to the man himself later, this will clear most of the misconceptions, suggested Lord Phenex. He really wanted to be just done with this mess. Sirzex nodded his head, clearly taking a liking to the idea. Talking might clear things in this situation. Meanwhile, in the other room of the club, Naruto followed the rest of the Rias peerage to the room next to Occult Research Club. All of the peerage members were looking at him with suspicion. Even a small blonde girl was glaring at him, but it looked more cute than intimidating. The blonde girl started healing everybody with her sacred gear, Twilight Healing. She started healing with Akano, who was unconscious and according to Naruto was on the verge of waking up because of the moans she was making. Her sacred gear is interesting. Though Naruto for a moment. Rias was trying her best to ignore Naruto, since she didn't know how she felt about him. With his parents he acted like a decent being, but when he was fighting he didn't show any kind of emotion. It was as if nothing mattered. She didn't want to admit it, but she was scared of him. He wasn't normal even by their standards. Naruto knew that he had to clear some things with Rias or else they will get worse with time. In other words, he decided to apologize for kicking their ass back in Vatican City. Rias-san, can we talk for a minute? I need to resolve some matters with you and your peerage for that matter. Asked Naruto with a kind smile. He didn't want to intimidate her, it will bring no benefits whatsoever. Rias turned around and stared at Naruto right into his eyes and said with a chilly tone, I am listening. Akeno had already woken up after getting healed by Asia, and now Issei was also watching the proceedings with great interest. I don't want to delay this, but I am sorry for hurting you and your peerage back in my base. I thought you were an enemy and I did what I had to do to defend myself. Naruto said sincerely. Rias gritted her teeth and said, you could have easily subdued us, but you came with the intent to kill. If not for Graphia, all of us would have died because of you. Issei also agreed with Bucko with this one. He could have easily subdued us. Bucko is right. Someone like you could have easily subdued us. Why come up with the intent to kill? She and her peerage are incredibly annoying. My patience is running thin. Thought Naruto with barely restraining anger, but he decided to endure. He was no longer the boy who made decisions based on his emotions. He was taught better by his teachers. First of all, if I came at you with the intent to kill, none of you would have been alive except Graphia. She is strong but not strong enough to protect you and fight me at the same time, Naruto said with a calm tone. Issei also got angry on the last statement, but not because of Naruto. It was him and his own powerlessness to do anything against him. He clenched his fists so hard that his hands turned white. He still remembered how Naruto destroyed him. It was like he was playing around. Even though he wasn't going to make his apologizing any easy. You did try to kill me with your sword, mentioned Issei with an accusing tone. Now everybody were looking at Naruto for an answer. I didn't try to kill you, Sakiryute. I was just going to maim you. At best you would have lost a limb or two, then I would have tortured you for some answers, replied Naruto with a sheepish expression. Everybody had a sweat dropped, thinking that killing would have been better than torture. Issei's face paled after hearing what Naruto was going to do to him. He is crazy. Rias wanted to give a piece of her mind, but before she could say anything Naruto said, I even gave you enough time to explain yourselves before our little altercation. If you would have explained yourselves, then nothing of this sort would have happened. Why didn't you do that, Rias-san? Rias blushed like a tomato and remembered what she was doing at that time. She was checking him out. Rias spluttered a lot of times trying to give a reason but ended up embarrassing herself. I am the one at fault here, thought an embarrassed Rias. Era Bucko, he is right. Anyways, none of us were harmed, there are just some bruises, said Akeno with her usual playful tone. He was going to torture Issei, he really must know some techniques. I hope he will teach me. Naruto saw a blushing Akeno and said with a honey-like voice, thank you for being so understanding. I really appreciate it. Akeno blushed even harder. Rias had a massive tick mark above her head. Naruto was ignoring her, but then he turned around. Look, it doesn't have to be like this. I know we started on a wrong foot, but give me another chance. Let me make it up to you, Rias-san, Naruto said with the same sincere tone. Rias blushed a cherry red and she spluttered again, but she managed to say measly okay. Issei was crying anime tears in the background because Naruto managed to solve a tough situation just by using sweet words. He is just like Kiba, in that regards. Bastard. Where are the changing rooms? I would like to change into something which will not draw so much attention, asked Naruto. Changing rooms are right around the corner, said Rias while at the same time pointing to the direction to the changing room. Naruto gave a nod and vanished to the changing rooms in Occult Research Club. After some time, Sears and the Phenex matrons entered the room of the younger devils, followed by the members of the Sears peerage, which included Graphia and Beowulf. Where is Naruto-kun? Asked Lady Phenex. Before Rias could answer her, Naruto voiced himself from Sears' back. I am right here, Ka-san, replied Naruto with a cherry tone. Naruto was wearing a white shirt with wrinkle-free black pants, and he was also wearing a black blazer which looked incredibly good on him. He kept two of the shirt's buttons open to show a little of his well-sculpted chest. Rias and Akeno immediately blushed after watching him in such a formal attire. He looked handsome and fierce at the same time. He said he didn't want to attract any attention, as if his present clothing helps him, thought Rias with her still furious blush. Sears' thought we're running on an entire opposite direction as compared to Rias. I didn't even sense him. Searsex thought gravely but nevertheless maintained his bubbly personality. Naruto-san, we would like to have a conversation with you later. Maybe we can do it in the underworld? Naruto gave a nod. I would like that. It's about time that I returned back to my home. I want to feel her very beating heart, said Naruto, showing some of his enthusiasm. Let's do that. Lord Phenex clapped his hands and a teleportation circle of the Phenex family appeared beneath the feet of Naruto and Searsex peerage, and they vanished from the occult research club, leaving only Rias and her peerage. Phenex Mansion. Lord Phenex teleported himself and his companions to his study room in the Phenex Mansion to get some answers from his wayward son. Lord Phenex's study was very extravagant, with a teak desk and a small minibar in the corner of the room filled with the most exotic scotches in the underworld. The study room was archaic in nature and had big windows which had brilliant view of thick trees and nature in general. There was also a dartboard attached to the front wall of the desk and some darts were attached to it. Naruto made his way to minibar and poured himself half a glass of raw whiskey with only ice and started taking some sips from it and started playing with a dart which was there in the minibar. So let's get to the point and tell me what you want to know, but keep in mind that I won't be answering all of your questions. Naruto's cheery tone instantly changing into a cold and stern one. Everyone was a little surprised to see sudden change in his behavior, but nevertheless asked their questions, starting with Lady Phenex. Where were you all these years? Lady Phenex asked with a concerned tone. Naruto gave a small smile. His mother always knew how to make him calm. I was in a lot of places. Budapest, Prague, Vatican City, Olympus, the list goes on. Everybody's eyes widened when Naruto mentioned the last place. Olympus is a place where the Greek gods resided. Nobody was allowed to just enter there on a whim. What were you doing in Olympus, Naruto-kun? Lady Phenex asked again before anyone else could. Everyone could clearly see that she was worried. I was on a mission for Lord Zeus. Can't give the details, they are classified, said Naruto with a stern tone before Searsex could question him further. Why did you leave us in the first place, Naruto-kun? We were heartbroken. We had every reason to believe that you were already dead. This time it was Lord Phenex who demanded answer with a sad face. Clearly his old age was catching up to him. I am sorry for doing that. I would like to give a decent reason, but the truth is I wanted to become strong, but at the same time I also wanted to visit different places and learn new things, replied Naruto, and he was clearly serious. This time Lord Phenex showed some anger. We could have easily provided with all kinds of training you needed to make yourself stronger. Naruto raised his right hand, stopped his father before he could speak any further. No, you could have never made me as powerful as I am today, even you know that. My strength is a strength which is achieved by being in numerous life and death situation. No kind of training can give me that. In last 10 years I had a goal. What was it? Asked Searsex, barely concealing his curiosity about the enigma this Naruto Phenex is. To survive and flourish. To do this I had to become someone else. I had to become something else. Finished Naruto with a calm tone. The only reason I survived this endeavor was because of you two. Naruto points at his parents. You both gave me the strength, because I knew that you both loved me, and no matter how much of a trouble I am in, I always had a place to return back to. My home. By this point even Naruto had some stray tears rolling down his cheek. Lady Phenex ran to her son and gave him a huge hug. Lord Phenex also followed his wife and also gave him a hug. Your home now, said the parents of Naruto together. What a brave boy. Doing something like this takes strength. No wonder he is so powerful in such young age. These were the similar thoughts which were running in both Searsex and his queen. In the room of Occult Research Club, two individuals were having a fierce match of chess, trying to outclass each other. Well, at least one of them was trying to put a fierce match. Sona frowned after watching her childhood friend not paying enough attention to the game. Clearly, she is bothered by something, thought Sona with a frown marring her face. Sona was a young bespectacled woman in her late teens with a slim figure, black hair styled in a short bob cut and deep violet eyes which seemed to penetrate a person's being. She was also the third most popular girl in the Kuo Academy after Rias and Akano Hamejima. Sona was popular for being the president of the student council in Kuo Academy, but in Underworld she was known as the heiress to the Citri family, who were one of the most powerful family in the Underworld. They had the designation of prince in the Underworld. Checkmate, declared Sona, but without her usual enthusiasm for defeating her childhood friend. Rias, after her humiliating defeat, finally came to her senses and frowned to show her displeasure that was rather quick. Maybe I am having a lousy day. Sona was now getting frustrated by her friend's clumsy behavior and decided to do something about it. Is it Naruto Phenex-san who is eating your mind right now? Asked Sona with a raised eyebrow. Rios' eye widened and she comically pointed at her friend and asked her rather loudly, "How do you know about him?" "It's hard to not know about him. You might not be informed about this, but at present all the attention is concentrated on the Phenex family. Their oldest son is going to be promoted to the ultimate class devil, and then rumors of their youngest son to be as strong as a Satan is going around. And finally I heard from my sister about your impending engagement with Naruto-san. Do you want to talk about it?" Sona asked the last part wryly, since she wasn't sure that whether she would be of any help to Rios. She wasn't exactly known for relationship advice. In fact, she might be the worst person to talk about it. "I am so glad that you asked. To tell the truth, I am happy that I got rid of my engagement with Riser." Sona gave a nod and encouraged her to continue. "But I am not sure how I feel about Naruto-san. You should have seen him, Sona. When I first met him we got into an altercation. And then he proceeded to take down my brother's pawn and took down the entirety of my peerage within seconds like we didn't even matter," said Rios with a worried expression. It was hard for her to forget those eyes when Naruto attacked them. They had no emotions in them whatsoever. They were chips of ice, so cold that they would freeze the underworld in a moment's notice. Sona raised an eyebrow when she heard her friend talk about Naruto Phenex. She didn't know that Rios was responsible for the retrieval of Naruto Phenex. "So, he is really that strong despite being the same age as us. I didn't quite believe my sister when she said that," Sona thought with a frown. Rios decided to continue from where she left off. "Then when he met his parents, he was so soft and caring. I could see it in his eyes that he really loved them and he wanted to protect them no matter what happened. In the end I am still not sure whether I want to spend the rest of my life with him. Everything about him is a mystery." Sona closed her eyes and started contemplating about the situation to help her friend and rival. "I also have a meeting to attend today with the Phenex family. They want to renegotiate the terms of marriage with the Gremory family. Personally, I would rather not get married until I get to know the other participant better," concluded Rios with a sigh. After looking into the situation, Sona gave a smirk to Rios. "Last time when your marriage with Riser was announced, you were downright enraged, but this time you were too calm. Do you have some sort of crush on Naruto-san?" Rios' face turned cheery red after her friend's accusation. She spluttered for a few seconds but was not able to say anything. Sona just gave a small mirthful chuckle for her friend's misfortune, whereas Rios just glared at her childhood friend. Before the fight between them could escalate any further, Akano made her presence known. She arrived using a teleportation circle. "Bucko, the preparations are done. We can move out to the Phenex mansion for the meeting. It would be better if we move out as soon as we can," Akano said with a serious voice. Rios gave a stiff nod, which meant that she agreed with Akano. Sona just gave an understanding sigh. "All the best, Rios. I hope that the meeting is fortunate for you." Rios just nodded back and disappeared with her queen from the occult research club using a teleportation circle. Somewhere in London, in an underground tavern in London, a bar fight was going on between two individuals who were fighting topless. One of them was a bald man with buffed muscles and he had a huge figure somewhere around 6 feet 7 inches, and another man had blonde hair with well-defined chest and abs, but he didn't look as intimidating as the earlier mentioned person. In fact, he was rather lean and good-looking but didn't seem like a guy who could take a beating, yet here he was letting the other man hit him like crazy while the blonde guy was just chuckling as if he didn't even felt the punches. He was none other than our favorite hero Naruto, who had tendency to piss other people off, namely the people who had bet on him losing. "Rip his balls off. Kill that bastard. Eat a giant dick, you blonde bastard." Naruto was just smiling and was taking the beating, but then his eyes went towards a beautiful woman who was sitting in the bar while drinking a glass of wine while holding his shirt and blazer. The woman had beautiful green eyes and red hair which were tied into a pony using a maroon ribbon in a bow shape. She was wearing a Victorian-styled dress which generally royal women wear for high-end parties. It did nothing to hide her figure. Naruto's eyes started to wander towards her assets, which were neither too big nor too small. They were just perfect. She looked absolutely gorgeous and gentle, but she had no place in a rundown tavern. Heck, no woman should be present in a place like this, and above all Naruto knew the woman. This made it harder for him to concentrate. That momentary distraction cost Naruto and he received a massive right hook from the bald Hulk to his face. However, Naruto managed to maintain his balance and didn't fell into the dirt, embarrassing himself. He is going down, Naruto thought and gave a heated glare to his opponent. The woman made a gasp and stood up, but before she could do anything, Naruto gave a hard slap to the opponent's ears using both of his hands, and then his arms blurred and gave 2 punches to the Hulk right in his ribs, and then he proceeded to give a massive left hook to the unfortunate soul's jaw, which broke the second Naruto's fist made contact. Naruto wasn't done with his assault yet, then he made a back flip and kicked him right at his cranium. effectively shutting the enemy down. Everybody's jaw was hanging on the ground. All of the hits from the blonde man happened in a fraction of seconds. The very man who was getting his ass kicked just moments ago. Naruto made his way to the woman who was holding his shirt and blazer. Nobody dared to block his way. In fact, many of them were giving him the loathing respect which he deserved. Naruto came close to the woman with very little steps, and before the lady knew, he was right in front of her, his face so close to her that a little push and their lips would collide. The lady sported a small blush, but it was hard to determine whether the blush was because of the wine or was it because a topless Naruto was so close to her. Naruto just gave a blank expression, and then he snatched his shirt and blazer and started wearing them one by one, so that he looked decent. Naruto, after wearing his clothing, gave a smile and said, "Why are you here, Akasha? You shouldn't be here in a place like this. It's dangerous, you know?" Akasha gave a scathing glare to Naruto. "I am a Shinso vampire. I am pretty sure I can handle myself, and don't you dare to change the subject, Naruto. I was forced to come here after you cut any kind of contact between me, your own queen. I am supposed to be with you at all times." The now identified woman said the last part in a whisper. "You didn't even introduce the other members of your peerage to me," Akasha concluded out loud. Naruto just gave a sigh. He knew that the moment he made Akasha his queen, she was going to be left out of a lot of things, since she wasn't like the other members of his peerage. All the other members were his previous comrades who he had fought together with in the Fourth Great Shinobi War. Naruto enveloped Akasha in a hug and pulled her close. "I am sorry for everything, Akasha, for not contacting you and leaving you. That wasn't right. You must have been worried. You are my queen. You are supposed to know everything about me. Don't you worry, Akasha, I will make this right." Naruto lied using honey-like words. It left a bad taste in his mouth, but there was not a way in hell that he was going to tell her everything about him. It would put him and the rest of his peerage in a great danger. He could never do that, but deep down he wished that he could talk about it. Deep down he wished that he could talk about it to her, his queen, Akasha Bloodriver. Akasha was stunned when she was suddenly enveloped in a hug from Naruto. As far as she knew, he wasn't the type to do these sort of things. He was always aloof and non-caring about things. Yet here she was hugged by Naruto. She had never been hugged like this in ages, especially not after that failed relationship with Issa. After a minute, which felt like ages to Akasha, Naruto released her from his grip and gave a heartwarming smile which brought a blush on Akasha's face. "I need you to go to a meeting in the Phenex manor. Even I don't know what the meeting is about, but I will come sometime later. I have some work in Switzerland." Akasha gave a nod, and then Naruto clapped his hands loudly. Akasha got teleported to Phenex manor as Naruto used a teleportation circle. Naruto used a spell that made other people lose their memories, since he didn't want other people to know more about devils, especially seedy people of this tavern, and then he disappeared in a yellow flash to Switzerland. Phenex manor. Circex and his wife Graphia, Lord and Lady Gremory, Rias and the rest of her peerage were sitting comfortably in the sofas of the living room in the Phenex manor with Lord and Lady Phenex. "Both of your sons are late, Phenex-san. Do they plan to make an appearance today?" asked Lord Gremory in a joking manner, but deep down he was serious. He got the information that Phenex family had an even younger son than Riser from Circex. This information changed the marriage circumstances. It was absolutely necessary that they go through all the required meetings to get to a proposal which satisfied both the parties. It was great to know that according to Circex the younger son was better as compared to Riser, but that didn't calm his worries. He wanted to meet the devil in question face to face, so that he himself could ascertain that what kind of devil this Naruto was. Rias and her peerage were stoic and didn't reveal any kind of emotions, but deep inside they were in turmoil. Rias didn't know how the meeting was going to proceed, and that worried her a lot. Issei didn't want Bucko to get married for obvious reasons like love and lust. Akano and rest of the peerage were worried for their Bucko friend, since it was a very important meeting which would decide their king's fate. Soon a bright light invaded the Phenex living room and two devils made their presence known. They were none other than Riser Phenex and his queen Eubeluna. "Mother, you called me. What's up?" Riser asked a little disrespectfully, but then his eyes went towards Rias and he gave grin. "Rias-chan. Are you here to meet your future husband? I never pegged you as the type to initiate these sort of things," said Riser with a lecherous expression. Eubeluna eyed Rias and then gave a smirk. Rias gave an aura of disgust and growled, "I am not here to marry you, Riser." Riser started to glow orange and hot fire started to surround his very being like a blanket. It seemed like he would attack any moment, but before he could make any type of moment, Lord Phenex snarled and was clearly agitated. "Riser, stop embarrassing yourself more than you already have, or else I will take necessary actions." Lord Phenex aired his threat and it had an immediate effect on Riser. He shut his mouth and gave a small tch, showing his displeasure. Searzex immediately made a small talk to lighten the mood. Ma, Phenex OG-san, please control yourselves. These young devils are always hot-blooded. Lord and Lady Gremory gave a nervous chuckle to show their discomfort, but deep down they were glad that this man wasn't going to marry their daughter. They already had a plan to annul this contract, but by some intervention they would not have to take any actions to see to it that the contract gets broken. This man is not good for Bucko. Issei thought with disgust and had every intention to blast the yakitori. He completely ignored the fact that he himself is quite similar to Riser. Akeno and Kaneko had similar thoughts like Issei. Kaneko even gave a scathing glare to Riser to show her displeasure with perverts. Before the tension could rise any further, a teleportation circle from the Phenex family appeared. So Naruto is finally here. Rias thought eagerly, but she was surprised to see that it wasn't Naruto, but instead it was a beautiful woman. A very beautiful woman. Now everybody's attention was on Akasha. The second Searzex and Greyfire's eyes went towards the redhead. Their eyes widened because they knew the said woman too well. She was popularly known as the Queen of the Damned because whoever fought with her was always damned to hell. One should never judge a person on their pretty face. Both Searzex and Greyfire learned that from Akasha. Since Akasha, despite portraying the epitome of gentleness, was an incredibly dangerous individual. She was a Shino vampire. That title itself put her on top of the most influential persons list. What the hell is she doing here? Thought Greyfire and Searzex with a frantic expression, but they didn't show any emotions outside. Riser and Issei started eyeing the woman with their trademark lecherous expression, but didn't make any moves to hit on the woman. Lord and Lady Phenex also raised an eyebrow after witnessing Akasha Bloodriver have a stroll on their manor. Their guts was telling them that Naruto was responsible for this. What a pleasure. I never expected to meet the Crimson Satan and his queen outside of the battlefield, Akasha said in a teasing tone. Last time when Akasha and Greyfire met, it didn't end well for the ultimate queen. Greyfire just gave a snort and asked, "Why are you here, Akasha? What business could you possibly have in the underworld?" Akasha just gave a pleasant smile which did nothing to uplift the nervousness in the Phenex manor. "I am just here in behalf of my king Naruto Phenex-sama. He will be a little late since he had other commitments to attend to." With that, Akasha dropped the bomb on the already tense situation. Greyfire's eyes widened to epic proportions. Clearly, even after all of her mental capacity, she couldn't believe that Akasha Bloodriver would ever follow a devil. She's a Shino vampire. Her pride should never allow her to claim fealty. Especially to someone like Naruto. Was I too quick to deem Naruto as no threat? Searzex thought with a frown. You are that bastard's queen. Riser snarled out. The second Akasha heard Riser bad-mouthing about Naruto, the pressure in the room increased to astronomical levels. Cracks started to appear in the Phenex mansion. Rias and her peerage were on their knees barely breathing. Asia was already unconscious because of the incredible pressure of pure magic in the room. Riser Queen's Ubaluna was already panting like her life depended on it. Searzex, Greyfire and the rest of the elder devils had a small bead of sweat running through their forehead. Rias didn't know what to do. For all her training, she didn't have a clue how to handle such kind of pressure. Akeno was also in the same boat with Rias. Kiba and Kaneko were scared out of their mind. They had never fought an opponent like her, and Akasha wasn't even looking at them. Now, they felt pity for Riser, who was having the whole brunt of her killing intent. What is this feeling of death? Issei thought frantically. He was scared out of his mind. Riser's eyes started watering and he nearly pissed his pants, but then he controlled himself. He didn't want to embarrass himself in front of his brother's queen. He just gave a defiant glare. Akasha just gave a cruel smirk, totally opposite of her personated gentle personality. You are just an ant compared to Naruto. Don't ever try to defy him, he will kill you without a single thought. Riser gritted his teeth. He wanted to go on a rampage, but he was more than intimidated by this woman. He was afraid. The pressure which dominated the Phenex manor lifted after Akasha was done giving her punishment to Riser. Lord and Lady Phenex just sighed and shook their head for Riser's stupidity. Well, now a small issue has been taken care of, let's continue with the meeting. Akasha encouraged with a sweet smile, though this time she wasn't fooling anyone. Rias and her peerage just gave a nervous chuckle to diffuse the situation. Rias was intimidated by Akasha. Akasha was strong and incredibly beautiful woman, much more so than her. It seemed like Naruto had a very high standard for his female companions. Rias was afraid that he would reject the marriage contract. She could not let that happen. Lord Gremory cleared his throat with a cough. Akasha-san, we are here to discuss the marriage between the next Gremory heir and the youngest son of Phenex family, Naruto Phenex-san. Riser had an enraged look on his face and he screamed out, "What? Before Riser could make the situation worse, Lord Phenex gave him a glare which promised a lot of pain if he didn't shut his mouth. Riser gritted his teeth and clenched his fists until it turned white because of the lack of blood. Akasha eyed Rias for a minute, then gave a dark glare. I am incredibly sorry, but we can't accept this marriage proposal. I see no need for my king to be married at such young age. Akasha stressed on the word my, which didn't go unnoticed by Rias. Rias frowned and returned the glare to Akasha with equal force. Who the hell was she to decide Naruto's preference? She wasn't going to let the marriage contract be annulled without a fight. Even if the opponent was Akasha Bloodriver. If she didn't get to marry Naruto, then she would be forced to marry the dirtbag Riser. She wasn't going to let that happen. Rias decided to give Akasha a piece of her mind, but before she could implement on that. Akasha-san is absolutely right. I see no need for this marriage. Anyways, I am too young to be married, and at this moment of my life marriage would be nothing more than a crutch which will drag me down. With that, Naruto made his presence known. Akasha gave a small smile the second she recognized Naruto's voice. She was getting incredibly uncomfortable because of this stupid meeting. Rias was heartbroken the second she heard Naruto say that this marriage will act as nothing more than a crutch for him. Is that what he thinks about me? A crutch, which will drag him down? She didn't know whether to be sad or angry. One thing was sure, she didn't felt good when Naruto didn't accept this marriage. She didn't know why, but something about Naruto attracted him a lot. He was donning the same wrinkle-free black pants and white shirt with a blazer over the top. Naruto had a small brown leather shoulder bag. Naruto gave a small smile and passed the bag towards his father. Lord Phenex just raised an eyebrow. What is this, Naruto, and why are you giving this to me? Naruto gave a smirk. That is 17 billion euros in German bearer bonds. According to Phenex clan laws, 15% of the profits earned by the son of a Phenex household should be deposited in the Phenex treasury, so I am doing just that. All the devils, including Riser, had their jaw on the ground. That was a lot of money to earn in just 10 years with no resources of Phenex family to boost your earning. Lord Phenex just gave a chuckle. That's great. Seriously, what have you been doing the last 10 years? Maybe I will think about joining in your business, mused Phenex head. Naruto just gave smirk. Let's just say that whoever said that crime doesn't pay, was so wrong. Everybody had a massive sweat drop when they heard Naruto define crime in such an invigorating way. Naruto then made a sigh and looked towards Rias. This decision is better for everyone. The way you are now, Rias-san, you won't even survive an engagement with me, let alone marriage. Venelena Gremory gave a curious glance. What do you mean by that, Naruto-kun? In last 10 years I have progressed a lot, but I have made this progress by angering a lot of strong individuals who hate my guts just because I exist. I would rather not go into details, but you get the gist. Naruto replied with an unusually calm tone. Rias was enraged because the way Naruto put it. It made her look weak, and she wasn't going to let that go. Are you implying that I am weak? Rias asked with an enraged tone. Naruto didn't even hesitate a moment to answer Rias. Yes, Rias, you and your entire peerage is weak. You know I have been keeping tabs on all of the new and upcoming devils. Rias, you have the most dysfunctional peerage I know of. Rias had some tears running down, but Naruto didn't stop. You have Knight with mental problems, then you have Queen who fights with only half the strength, and to top it off your Rook is a Nekosho who can't use Senjutsu. And that Dampire which you were not able to control. The list just goes on. Issei was pissed. He could handle anything, but watching Bucko cry like that, it made his blood boil. He couldn't take it anymore. Naruto, you bastard, how you dare make Bucko cry? With that, Issei activated his boosted gear. Naruto just spared a glance towards Issei and then sighed. And I totally forgot to mention the weakest Securiute in the history of Underworld. To be frank with you, Rias, I hold more power in the tip of my finger than you and your entire peerage hold in your very body. Issei was going to attack Naruto with his very might, but Graphia stopped him with a glare, but that didn't stop him from shaking with anger. Rias now had free tears running down her cheek. Naruto finally noticed that, and he felt guilty. He never wanted to make her cry. The problem here is not you, it's me. Even after all I achieved over the years, the only thing which I can give you is a horrible life filled with misery and regrets, where your life is in a constant danger. On my good conscience, I can't do that. Naruto lost himself in his melancholy. Rias finally looked at Naruto, and he looked so sad and vulnerable at that time, but then he turned his head towards her and gave her a warm smile. The least I can do is see to it that you are free. That is why you will not be married to anyone in the Phenex household. I assure you that. You will have your freedom. I guess that makes it better. Rias replied in between sobs. Naruto came close to Rias until there was no space between them, and he started wiping her tears with his handkerchief. Don't cry. Tears don't suit you, replied Naruto in a very loving way. Rias now spotted a full-blown blush, whereas Akasha was sporting massive tick marks and was clearly annoyed by the scene. Riser was beyond enraged. First, his bastard brother came and totally ignored him, and then he proceeded to steal his bride and finally embarrassed him by presenting his monumental success in the last decade. "I am not going to accept this farce. Rias will be married to me," Riser snarled out. He didn't even try to hide his hate for the youngest Phenex. Riser wasn't allowed to finish his rant because Lord Phenex stood up and slapped him right across his face. Riser was stunned. His father had never slapped him, in fact he had never even touched him in his whole life. For him to slap him in front of everyone, for first time in his life, Riser was ashamed of himself. He had gone so far over the years that his own father had to slap him to get him out of his delusions. "That's enough, Riser," Lord Phenex said, but his pain was clearly visible. "I am sorry, Gremory-san, but this marriage contract is null and void. We can no longer accept it." Lord Gremory just gave a nod to show that he understood the circumstances. Sirzex and Grafia also supported the decision. Issei was glad that Bucko wasn't getting married. Even he had dreams with Rias which included him marrying her. Naruto was glad that he was able to defuse the situation without using force because it could have taken the turn for worse with him having to fight Riser. He knew that he could easily defeat him, but that would have ended up him showing some of his cards. He liked to be anonymous with his skills. Suddenly Naruto's danger senses started to go haywire and he moved towards left, allowing him to dodge a holy dagger, but now the dagger was making his way straight towards Riser. Riser's whole life started to appear right in front of him, the second he saw a holy dagger making his way close directly where his heart was located. He knew that he wasn't going to die, but he was speechless that anybody would be nuts enough to attack them right in the comfort of their home. Naruto narrowed his eyes and disappeared in a burst of speed and took Riser out of the way of harm and caught the dagger with his right palm and threw the dagger at sonic speeds to the source of attack. The poor devil died on the spot when the dagger went right through his face. The entire Phenex manor was invaded by 10 devils who were wearing masks, black hood and a black cloak which totally hid their figure and their faces, but it clearly showed their wings which were shaped like that of a bat. Sirzex, Grafia and Akasha were immediately on their guards, but before anybody can do anything, Naruto disappeared in another burst of speed and all the bodies fell dead with blood gushing out of their wounds except one devil which Naruto was holding by its neck. What crazy reflexes! Sirzex thought, totally amazed by Naruto. He had heard about his skills from Grafia, but this was the first time he himself saw it, and he was more than impressed. Lord and Lady Phenex were in the same boat with Sirzex and Grafia. Even Riser was astounded to see his younger brother taking care of his attackers in such a swift manner. He was more than intimidated by Naruto. Naruto removed the hood of his attacker and it revealed to be a woman with dark brown hair and black eyes. She looked at Naruto defiantly, but Naruto just gave an emotionless smirk. "Who sent you to kill me?" The she-devil just looked at him and gave a smirk of her own. "You are going to die here today, Naruto. This very moment an army is going to invade the Phenex territory." Naruto's face became emotionless and then with a swift movement he snatched a holy dagger from under the woman's thighs which was placed there using a leather strap and stabbed her in the other thigh. She gave a spine-chilling scream. Everybody was shocked to see Naruto torture the devil like it was a normal thing for him, and it scared the shit out of everyone. Rias didn't know what to think about Naruto. Akano was blushing up a storm. Asia was unconscious again and she just woke up a few moments earlier. Kaneko just glared at Naruto. Issei and Kiba were scared of this monster known as Naruto, and if possible they didn't want to get in his way like ever. "I asked who sent you. Tell me and the pain will go away." With that, Naruto twisted the dagger to make his point clear. The devil's earlier bravado was lost and she whimpered out, "Rizavum, Rizavum Levon Lucifer." The moment she gave the name, Naruto broke her neck and ended her suffering. "I think this fight can't be avoided. Anyways, I was itching for a good dance," thought Naruto while humming a jolly tune. Rizavum. Why is one of the super devil trying to kill Naruto? Were the immediate thought which came into the mind of Sirzex and his queen Grafia, because it didn't make any kind of sense. All of the elder devil who knew about Rizavum were immediately alarmed since he was the strongest devil in existence period. Even his fellow super devils can only defeat him with their peerage to support them. It is a very common misconception that Sirzex is the strongest devil alive, but the truth is something else. The reason for this misconception was Rizavum himself, since he rarely ever made any kind of move in last few centuries. This made people to forget that he even existed, or they just didn't want to believe that a devil as dangerous as him wasn't on anybody's side and was free to do anything he wanted to do. Rizavum was a unique kind of devil who neither supported the older faction nor the present faction of devils, despite being the only son of the actual Mao Lucifer. He was known for sheer ruthlessness, which he demonstrated in the battlefield and in his own personal life. He had killed his own son because he was weak and then forced his grandson to live his life as an orphan without any kind of basic necessities. Some even say that the only reason he didn't participate in the war was because he thought the entire situation was so boring. The halls of the Phenex manor were in utter panic. Rias and her peerage face grew pale after they heard that an army was going to invade the Phenex estate. Even Riser and Ubaluna looked worried since both of the parties knew that they weren't equipped or mentally prepared for an attack like that. Searzex and his peerage were calm, but they marred a frown. The same with the Phenex clan head and his wife. Akasha just had a smile on her face, but this wasn't her usual calm and loving smile. This smile looked murderous. She really wanted to kill something, which could alleviate her bad mood. Akasha was furious that someone attacked Naruto right in front of her and she was too slow to protect him. Naruto had handled the entirety of the assassins in a matter of seconds. Naruto was calm. In fact, he was so calm that it gave chills to everyone. How can he act like it's nothing in a situation like this? These kind of thoughts raced in the mind of younger devils who weren't familiar with war. Naruto crouched and touched the floor with the tip of index finger and went into a trance. Naruto was using the famous sensing technique of the Naidem Hokage to sense the number of enemies which he had to fight. He was quite proud of his chakra abilities since he was pretty sure that there was no one in his world who could equal him when he used his chakra, though he had no intent to use them in his upcoming battle. In the last 10 years he had learned a lot of things and he was proud to say that his skills in magic were nothing to scoff at. In fact, he was incredibly deadly with his magic, and this upcoming annihilation gave him the perfect opportunity to put those skills to test. Thinking about trying to test his new techniques brought a smile to his face, or it might have been because of the amount of sheeps which Rizavum sent to exterminate. Everybody raised an eyebrow because of the weird stance Naruto was in. He seemed to do something, but they didn't know whether it was productive or just a waste of time. "We will help you, Phenex-san. The situation is so dire to just handle on your own," Searzex said seriously. "If necessary, I will also fight this battle to ensure that there are not many casualties," Searzex added as an afterthought. Graphia just gave a nod to the Phenexes to show that she agreed with her husband's judgment. Searzex and Graphia had a lot of questions to ask to Naruto, but this wasn't the time or place for this kind of discussion. Before Lord Phenex could give his response, he was interrupted by none other than Naruto. "There are about 2,700 devils and they are about 30 to 35 kilometers far. Most of them are from mid to high class devils in power, although I can't sense anyone at the level of a Satan. Clearly Rizavum didn't take me seriously enough. Tch, I feel so insulted." Naruto said the last part with a light chuckle, like he was having fun in an amusement park. The second everybody heard the numbers they went pale. Even Graphia and Searzex were intimidated. It reminded them of old war between the three factions, and now they knew how seriously Rizavum was taking the youngest Phenex. A man like Rizavum took an all-out interest in Naruto, and that made them even more wary of the youngest son of Phenex household. Rias and the gang didn't even think that they would be useful in a situation like this. The problem was so dire for them to handle. "This is crazy. Just how many people hate Naruto?" Issei thought ridiculously. He didn't know whether to be scared or surprised by the numbers. In the end, he decided to do both of them. Naruto wasn't an average high-class devil. He is a very dangerous person. This attack on his person proved that beyond any kind of doubt. At least that was the case for Searzex. He really needed to have an honest talk with Naruto later, since if Naruto survived, he will easily be the hottest property in the underworld, and if trained properly he will be an invaluable Satan in these coming times. Naruto made a grateful face and turned towards Searzex. "I really appreciate your help, but it's not necessary. Me and my queen can easily handle it." Akasha just nodded back to Naruto to show that she understood him. Riser was furious. He came stomping the dirt beneath him. "Are you crazy? We can't handle this alone. We will need all the help which we can get. We might have had our differences, but we can't let these things destroy our house." Naruto gritted his teeth but calmed himself. "Trust me. After this is over, everybody will look at the Phenex house differently. The question here is whether you will trust me or some outsider." Riser. Naruto screamed the last part out. Riser was just dumbfounded, but he got his wits. "You have a plan, don't you? Tell me what I have to do," replied Riser earnestly. Despite his general attitude, he loved his family, and to protect it he wouldn't even mind if he had to cooperate with Naruto. Lord and Lady Phenex were glad that their sons found at least some kind of common ground between them. They just wished that it would have happened sooner instead of a time like these. Naruto took some seals from his pocket. "Take these and paste them at the four corners of the house. It will create a barrier which can't be breached, and make your queen gather the elderly and other people who can't fight and proceed to take them to the shelters." Riser gave a nod and disappeared with his queen. No matter what, I can't just leave you alone on my good conscience. I will be coming with you for this battle whether you need it or not. Sirzex replied sternly. He wasn't going to budge on that, it was his responsibility to make sure that young devils didn't lose their lives pointlessly. Even Lord and Lady Gremory gave a curt nod to the Phenex heads which clearly said that they were going to help no matter what. Naruto just rubbed his temple to show his discomfort. Whatever, just don't slow me down, Lucifer-san. Sirzex just gave a smile because he was glad that now Naruto wasn't going to reject the help. Naruto went towards Akasha and placed his hands on her right shoulder and disappeared in a flash of yellow like he wasn't even there to begin with. What the hell was that? Everybody thought simultaneously. He is already there, we must go there immediately, Graphia stated frantically. Sirzex gave a curt nod and looked towards Rias. Rias, you will also be coming with us. You must learn what a war is. Naruto was right, you have been too much sheltered for your own good. Rias gave a determined stare. My peerage will also accompany me. That's fine. A second later a giant magic circle covered the halls of Phenex halls and the entirety of the devils disappeared from the Phenex mansion. This team include war veterans like Crimson Satan and his peerage, the elders of respective clan, and the novice Gremory Rias and her peerage. Meanwhile, that is one big army of devils, Naruto, Akasha responded with her murderous smile. A big army of devils were only few miles away. The sight of this big an army would have been quite intimidating for even an experienced war veteran, but not for Naruto. For him it was nothing. He had seen so much in the past few years that even an army just gave him shot of excitement and thrill. There was just so many ways he could annihilate them. Oh, the possibilities. Suddenly Akasha's eyes narrowed. Naruto. They are here, the Lucifer's party is here to help us. The moment Akasha voiced their arrival, a light invaded Naruto's sights and Sirzex and his group finally arrived to assist them. The moment Sirzex and his group watched an army standing before them, well, let's just say they were shocked. Rias didn't even know what to do in a situation as dire as this. I will get killed, there is no way I can survive this, Issei thought frantically. The rest of the members were also going through the same line of thought. The elders among this group just braced themselves for an inevitable battle to death. I have already called the rest of my peerage to assist, but it's going to take some time. We will have to hold the fort until they arrive. Sirzex stated with some worry. He was one of the strongest devils, but it had been ages since he fought like a battle like this. Naruto just shook his head. This battle will be over before they arrive, I will make sure of that. With that said, Naruto started releasing a massive amount of magic in the air. Hoyoku no Jomen, the gate of Phoenix wings. A massive ring of fire made its appearance in the sky, and then giant pillars of light came out of this fire ring to form a barrier created from an obelisk and many planks combining to form a sort of lampshade, resembling folding wings and a crude bird's head, body. This barrier engulfed the entire army like a bunch of sheep who were waiting to be slaughtered. What an amazing large-scale barrier magic. If I am correct, the technique which he used right now was the Kido, demon arts. But how could he know that? I thought it was extinct. Sirzex watched the barrier being totally amazed by the sheer scale of the magic. In the meantime, Captain, I can sense a large amount of magic being used, right in front of us, a foot soldier said hastily with worry etched in his voice. Before the captain could reply or command anything, a giant phoenix-like transparent barrier engulfed the entirety of the army. The only thing which he could say was, what the hell is this? The army commander knew that he had to kill a boy named Naruto, but what he was never told was what the said boy was capable of. The only thing which his leader told him was that the target was a high priority and gave him an army so that he could succeed in this endeavor. He thought that this would be over in minutes with an army like that to command, but now he was doubting himself. But there was no way he was going to falter here. Prepare yourself for the battle, the commander screamed out. All the devils went into their guard to take down their enemy in any kind of manner possible. With Sirzek's group, they were still reeling from the shock of the earlier technique demonstrated by the youngest Phenex. Rias didn't even know what to say. She was amazed by how someone could be so calm and collected in the face of an army. She knew that even though the barrier was beyond impressive, this would only stop the army. It will take much more to take care of the said army. Lord and Lady Phenex were even more amazed by their son's progress. Till now they had only heard about his skills from Graphia, but watching it in action was an entirely different scenario. Lord and Lady Gremory just stood there and were thinking maybe it would be better to have at least some sort of correspondence between Naruto and the Gremory family in the future. It was a good move, Naruto-san. This will give us some time to strategize and plan our attack, Sirzek said calmly. He was glad that for now at least the things were under control. Naruto didn't even bother to hear Sirzek and instead made some movements with his arms which opened a small door-like structure, and then he said sternly, Akasha. Go inside the barrier and start taking down as many devils as you can. After a second, complete the task with extreme prejudice. Naruto added as an afterthought. The moment Akasha heard her king's orders, she dashed into the battlefield in speeds which could only been perceived by the likes of Searsex and Graphia. Everyone who were present there had their eyes widened before they could even stop Akasha. She was already within the barrier. Her Victorian dress was replaced by an ancient Greek-like armor and the door closed behind her. What the hell is wrong with you? You don't just send someone from your peerage to die. Searsex voiced his thought in an enraged manner. She might be stronger than Graphia, but still this is too much, even for her, Searsex added with his untamed anger. I just wanted to see what the Queen of the Damned is actually capable of. The things which we often read from books and hearsay are often so exaggerated for me to believe. Heck, according to them every other ancient person is capable of destroying the world. If that's the case then our world would have been already destroyed, Naruto replied with an eerily calm attitude. He even had the galls to say it in a joking manner. Just for that reason. Searsex replied with his own calm attitude, but his calmness was scary, very scary. His entire body was already getting covered by his trademark power of destruction. Issei and Rias didn't know what the fuck happened just now. A moment ago things were running just fine, well as fine as a situation can be in the moment of a war. But now the atmosphere was tense, very tense. Lucifer, believe me. You don't want to start something which you can't finish, so stand down before I fucking make you. As far as rules go you have already interfered enough, so shut that mouth of yours and let me do my job. Why don't you try shutting me up? That is, if you can, Searsex retorted with a growl, and his power of destruction stared getting coalesced in his right arm and started radiating a dangerous dark maroon aura. Naruto just chuckled like he was having a time of his life, and then his entire arm lit on fire and the fire coalesced into sphere at the palm of his left hand and he charged at Searsex. Searsex also had no intention of holding back. He also charged right into the fray with his right arm outright. He had been insulted enough by this young man. He can't let someone with this kind of potential do something so unsightly. He must stop him as soon as he can. Lord Gremory and Lord Phenex moved immediately the second they saw their sons charging each other with the intent to kill. It was heartbreaking for them to watch so much infighting between them. Before they could destroy each other, both Naruto and Searsex were grabbed by their respective fathers in double shoulder lock from behind their back. We don't have time for this, Naruto. Your family is being attacked, so stop this. Lord Phenex. Searsex. That's enough, we don't have time for this, Lord Gremory chided his son. Just a moment later Naruto grinned at Searsex and disappeared like thin air from his father's grasp. The three of them started looking at all the direction to find Naruto. Suddenly, Naruto appeared behind Searsex trying to find me. Searsex immediately disappeared in high speed and turned his back away from Naruto and glared. Naruto had already changed his attire by this time and was wearing an ancient samurai warrior outfit with red guards around his joints, chest and other important parts. Madara's outfit. The entire thing was an illusion. The realization finally dawned on Searsex. But when did he cast his illusion? Searsex finally remembered that Naruto had made some weird head movements before a door was opened to let Akasha pass. He casted such an illusion during such a small set of time. He is impressive, Searsex thought with some loathing respect. The stance just now was perfect, Lucifer-san. Well, I guess that's a Satan for you, but you must realize that I am younger than you, faster than you and far more deadly than you. Naruto lectured Searsex in a cajoling manner like he was talking to a child. Truthfully, it pissed Searsex off. You, Naruto pointed his index finger at Searsex, should never attack an opponent like me head on, cause you are not the same as you were years ago. Naruto gave a light chuckle and said, you're rusty. Rias and the gang were just watching this from as far away as they can because Rias really didn't want to get in between her brother and Naruto. However, she was kind of turned on from watching Naruto go against her brother. Seriously, there weren't a lot of people who would openly defy her brother's wishes, and that added some novelty value for Naruto. Searsex relaxed his muscles and stances and gave his trademark smile, which always made other people take him lightly. She is being taken around from all sides, though she managed to take down somewhere around 700 devils, but I think I should interfere now. I think that's her limit for now, Naruto said with a thoughtful face. In the battlefield, Akasha had taken a lot of opponents out, but now after 10 minutes she was out of magic and stamina, but she wasn't going to back down, not now, when her king was watching her. It was a time for her to shine. The opposition commander didn't know what hit them. They were prepared to take any kind of opposition with an army this big to back them up. Then suddenly, a force hits them and starts cutting through them like whirlwind. This crazy woman had right hooks which would create craters. A single punch would take out a small battalion of his men, and there were some crazy magic she used called Hugetsu Jigen 2, moon-crushing dimensional sword, where she covered her hand in magical particles which vibrated in ungodly speeds, allowing her to cut through anything. Thanks to those abilities, the entire battlefield was a mess of craters and tears, with 700 of his men down, and the real target wasn't even there to kill. What a waste. However, now they had finally surrounded the crazy bitch from all sides, and she was running low on magic and stamina. She was now just a duck waiting to be killed. Akasha was huffing and panting. Come on. Is that it? I've have still ton of energy left to beat the crap out of you all. You bitch. When we are done shutting that mouth of yours, we are going to have fun with you. A no-name devil said that with a lecherous expression, while other comrades of his matched his expression and charged their magic. Akasha closed her eyes and braced herself for the pain. But it never came. With Sirzek's group, when Akasha opened her eyes, she was surprised. For some reason she was in the arms of her king, who was holding her like a bride, and instead of being in the middle of a battle she was with the friendlies. When the fuck did he move? I was here the entire time, thought a frantic Sirzek and Graphia. The very same emotion were mirrored by the elders of the Gremory and the Phenex clan. Whereas Rias had a massive tick mark on her head. She was pissed. In a span of single days she was rejected by Naruto. Her life was in peril thanks to Naruto again, and now he is carrying another woman like a bride right in front of her. There is only so much a woman could take. However, she did realize that this was not a time for such frivolous activities. She will deal with him later, in her own playful way. You did great, Akasha, but the thing is you fight too much. Naruto put Akasha down to her feet. If you want to be truly my queen, then you must learn how to dance. Let me show you how it's done. With that, Naruto disappeared in high speeds and jumped into the battlefield, and the entire barrier broke like glasses behind him. In the battlefield, the devils present in the battlefield didn't have time to think about the barrier coming down. Within a span of a minute, their prey escaped them, and some guy wearing a samurai armor had made his presence known. The only thing good about the situation was that this time the guy was their target and he was only few yards away. Give it up, Naruto Phenex, you can't win against an army this big. Just let me kill you and make it easy for all of us, the commander said in a smug tone. Naruto just returned a smile with closed eyes, but then his eyes opened and a massive amount killing intent washed over the remaining 2,000 devils, scaring them, giving a chill down their spine and showing them gruesome images of their death. The entire battle came to a halt for few seconds, with Sirzek's group. Just a second ago Naruto had joined the battle, but the aftereffects were felt as far as to their group. A wave of killing intent reached them immediately, making the elders' hair stand up. The lesser ones from Rias' peerage like Kaneko, Asia and Kiba were already unconscious since they were never subjected to a killing intent of that caliber. Only one who managed to stay conscious from Rias' peerage were Issei, Akeno and Rias herself. This is nothing like last time. Last time his killing intent wasn't that strong. I saw myself getting killed by him, thought a wide-eyed Issei who was barely holding on to his sanity. Rias had her eyes widened. She felt like she couldn't breathe. What is happening? I have never felt fear like this, and I am not even the target for his ki. Before Rias could hyperventilate, the comforting hand of her brother landed on her shoulder and said soothingly, "Just breathe, Rias, just breathe." Sirzek narrowed his eyes and watched far to the battlefield. Naruto was destroying and killing everything within his vicinity with such a surgical precision that it didn't even seem natural. It was as if he could read everybody's move a step earlier, and from here he was not able to see anything properly enough to discern what allowed him to fight. No, dance like that. Lord and Lady Phenex were shocked beyond belief. They had never thought that the boy who they took as their son would become so powerful someday. They were so proud that they could not describe it in words, but at the same time they were worried that he would become corrupt due to his own power. Lord and Lady Gremory were just watching the entire thing with a gobsmacked expression. Rias and the conscious members of her peerage were in the same boat as her parents. How could someone so young has a battlefield presence like that? Graphia thought with some worry and respect for the youngest Phenex. The battlefield, those few seconds were more than enough for Naruto. His Kusanagi shined brightly with holy power, and Naruto dashed those few yards of distance between him and the sheeps in a fraction of a second, and he started slaughtering them without any kind of mercy. They were not even a challenge before his speed, and coupled with the Sharingan, he could easily see their moves. The commander was the first one to die by his blade. He couldn't even see him coming first, take out the head of the army. Now, the entire army was in a disarray. They had lost a lot of devils, and the monster in front of them didn't even took a scratch from them. 200 down, another 1800 to go, Naruto stated as if their presence didn't even matter to him. A devil came from the west and charged his wind magic, Amara Baram, and it hit Naruto. Even the responsible devil was surprised. However, Naruto quickly flipped midair and landed gracefully on his feet and looked at his attacker and dusted some imaginary dirt from his shoulder guard, whereas the attacker just gritted his teeth due to frustration and cursing his own weakness. Secondly, keep the army in bay using wide-scale attacks. Naruto's eyes shined as he allowed his magic to pour out like water and started chanting his Keto limit of the thousand's hands, respectful hands, unable to touch the darkness. Shooting hands unable to reflect the blue sky. The road that basks in light, the wind that ignited the embers, time that gathers when both are together, there is no need to be hesitant, obey my orders. Light bullets, 8 bodies, 9 items, Book of Heaven, Diseased Treasure, Great Wheel, Grey Fortress Tower. Aim far away, scatter brightly and cleanly when fired. Hado number 91. Senju Koten Teho, Thousand Hand Bright Heaven Culling Seer. Hundreds of bright yellow energy points appeared behind Naruto, which were entirely made holy light. All the devils were scared shit after watching a devil create so many light spears. What is he? One fearful devil screamed out. He didn't want to die like this, getting pierced by holy light. To put some kind of protection against this kind of attack, a battalion of devils came forward and erected a barrier to put some kind of protection against it. However, the barrier didn't stand a chance. The energy points, spears, they tore through the barrier like paper, and all the energy spears converged to cause a massive blast that spread out miles. With Searzek's group, the second Naruto chanted his magic, Graphia rushed forward and erected a barrier to protect themselves from the afterlash of Naruto's magic. That was easily at the level of Seraph. How could any devil use the holy light to this level? Searzek and Lord Phenex thought simultaneously, one with suspicious, another with pride. Rias, Akeno and Issei realized the true difference between them and Naruto for the first time. Can someone like me be as strong as him? Issei questioned himself. Back to battlefield. The explosion had caused a lot of dust to spread in the air, making it harder to see and guess the position of the opposition, but Naruto with his superior eyes had no such problem, and he had every intention to utilize this to the fullest. Naruto jumped into the smog and started attacking every devil in their vital points with surgical-like precision. Those who tried to retaliate fell like flies against Naruto's superior speed and style. Naruto laughed when certain devils tried to overpower him by using their respective martial art, but what they didn't realize was every martial art form in this world was made for self-defense, whereas his style of fighting was dedicated to achieve only one single purpose, that is total annihilation of the opponent. Killing you opponent as soon as you can, that was the purpose of a shinobi taijutsu kata. 800 down, another 1200 to go, chuckled Naruto. They can't see my eyes from here, maybe I can use some of my chakra techniques, thought an ecstatic Naruto. Naruto's eyes glowed and they turned into the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruto's left eye pulsed and he whispered Amaterasu, heavenly illumination. Jet black flames made their appearance on the battlefield. They started burning everything they came in contact with. Due to Naruto's superior chakra control, thanks to his yin-yang chakra, the amount of black flames were stupendous. The entire battlefield started screaming due to the pain and suffering caused by the flames of Amaterasu. A brave devil came out and screamed, water magic users, take forward position. A small battalion of high-class devils, just in strength, came forward and charged their magic. An array of seals appeared and a significant amount of water came out of the magic seals. However, these flames weren't normal, they were even burning and shining brightly at the surface of the water. Naruto started to channel some chakra mixed with his magic to his limbs. He didn't want to arouse suspicion by using too much chakra. Enten. Kagetsuchi, Inferno style, flame control. The flames which were burning on top of the water started surrounding Naruto like a gentle breeze, but a second later Naruto started moving his hands gracefully in different directions and the flames of Amaterasu obeyed him like it was nothing more than a servant. If earlier the flames hadn't caused significant damage, then now they were causing a loss of like as if it was a natural disaster. 600 more to go, Naruto stated with a calmness which should be shown during such precarious situations. The chakra receded from Naruto's eyes and limbs, deactivating the fabled Sharingan. Searzek's group, those black flames are amazing. Are they inextinguishable? Thought a giddy Lady Phenex. The devils who dared to attack the house of Phenex were being killed left and right by none other than their own son. You have already surpassed me, Naruto. A proud Lord Phenex thought with pounding heart. There was nothing else he could say after watching those magnificent black flames. Akasha just didn't know what to think. She knew Naruto was powerful, but this was beyond amazing. You are something else, Naruto-kun. We must go forward and watch things more closely. It's safe now. Most of them are dead anyway, and stay clear of those flames, Searzek said sternly. He was surprised enough by Naruto Phenex for a day, his shock quota was already filled. All the other younger devils gave a stiff nod. We are here. Dad. A panting riser Phenex finally made it and was followed by his queen. Lord Phenex gave a flat look. That's great, we were just proceeding to the battlefield, accompany us. Riser and Ubaluna finally looked at the state of the battlefield. It was scattered by corpses, some of them were even burning by strange black fire. Did brother caused all this? Thought a dumbfounded riser Phenex. In the battlefield, please have mercy, we surrender. The remnant devils cried out. Despite still having a force of around 600 devils, they knew they weren't going to take down this monster of a devil, and to make their spirit crumble even further they saw the Crimson Satan and his queen approach them with the vampire and a bunch of other devils. Some of them even started crying tears of blood. Some of them lost a friend, some a brother, sister, some a father. They just wanted this nightmare to end. Finally, crush any kind of hope they have. Naruto brought his right hand forward and started to chant his final magic. Seeping crest of turbidity. Arrogant vessel of lunacy. Boil forth and deny. Grow numb and flicker. Disrupt sleep. Crawling queen of iron. Eternally self-destructing doll of mud. Unite. Repulse. Fill with soil and know your own powerlessness. Hado number 90. Kurohitsugi, black coffin. The entire sky turned black. The devils who still had some fighting spirit looked upward and their feet came crushing downwards. It might have been due to heavy gravitational pressure, or it might have been the feeling hopelessness which washed over them. Many of them started laughing due to madness. We are all dead. As this the power of a phoenix were the last words of a devil before a large black coffin engulfed the remaining army. Before Naruto could close his fist and end the life of the sheeps, the hand of Sirzex prevented him from doing so. That's enough, Naruto-san, there has been enough death already. I see no reason to not proceed with my course of action. They attacked my family, endangering everything I love. My parents, brother, the people who gave a no-name devil like me home. Don't stop me when you would have done the same thing, Sirzex. Naruto replied and looked into Sirzex's eyes. When Sirzex saw Naruto's eyes, he was stunned. For the first time he saw someone with so much sadness and pain in them. He was so stunned that he automatically left Naruto's arm. Why someone like you have such eyes? Eyes which have gone through war. Eyes which lost everything precious to him. Why? A mournful Sirzex thought. For him it was heartbreaking. After becoming Satan he had done everything possible so that the younger generation would never feel something like that. Today for the first time he felt like a failure. Lord Phenex heard everything from afar and just closed his eyes and said mournfully, end it, Naruto-kun. That's all the motivation Naruto needed. With that he finally closed his fists. The said black coffin protruded hundreds of spear-like structure and made a bomb-like sound, finally ending the life of the remaining army. Finally, when the block coffin disappeared into small particles, not even the corpses were left. Finally, it's over, Lord and Lady Gremory said simultaneously with a sad sigh. No, it hasn't. I still need to make a statement that aggression against our family will not be tolerated and will be met with dire consequences, claimed Naruto with a dark aura. His entire body was covered in fire. The fire started coalescing around his arm and finally he sent a beam towards sky. The beam started circling around and started to take the shape of a phoenix, and after a few seconds it finally morphed into the crest of the House of Phenex. But the light show wasn't done. The fire from the tail took the shape of a whirlpool which engulfed the entire body of Phoenix. The head of the phoenix gave a massive screech which was heard miles away in the underworld. Beelzebub Castle. Ajuka Beelzebub had been working on one of his invention just few moments ago, but then he felt massive amount of magic being used. The amount of magic was so large that there was no way that he could ignore it, so he went out to check the matter out. He was worried. The magic which he felt wasn't from any of the Satan, and not just anybody could release that amount of powerful and condensed magic. Only he and his fellow Satan Sirzex could release that amount of magic into the air. He was moving towards the source of magic as soon as he can. Suddenly a bright light invaded his eyes. He saw a beam of fire moving towards the sky and morphing into a symbol. Finally, he recognized the symbol and his eyes widened to epic proportions. He whispered, that's not possible, that symbol. Ajuka Beelzebub was running towards the scene as if his life depended on him. He was worried. He wouldn't admit it, but he was also a tad bit intimidated, and afraid. His pride would never allow him to admit such things, but he had heard some terrible things about the symbol which colored the skies, as of this moment. Something so terribly unbelievable that he could consider it as nothing but modern myth advertised by some crazy lunatics. In the last few years a myth had spawned about a symbol which had appeared in the dark sky. This symbol was that of a phoenix which was engulfed by a maelstrom originating from its very tail. This very symbol was never openly described but only whispered as Phenex in the shadow of a maelstrom. It had appeared only once before if he could trust these rumors and had managed to cause some stir, but nobody wanted to take it seriously. It can't be, it's just not possible. Nobody can escape from that prison, nobody can. Ajuka thought relentlessly. He just couldn't believe that ludicrous rumor. With that thought, Ajuka increased his speed and hoped that he managed to get there in time. In the battlefield, Naruto was just looking up into the sky, admiring his handiwork with melancholy, and remembering his past deeds which he wanted to forget and bury deep down, but he knew such a thing was just not possible. These experiences had changed him from a child with unachievable ideals into a man who was capable of harsh decisions which might seem cruel even to a war veteran, nevertheless they were necessary. The training which he endured from his teachers taught him that. They were the one who helped him to reach his true potential and to turn him into someone who actually analyzed his opponents and took educated decisions instead of just steamrolling everything, and they were also the one who taught him to not rely too much on his luck, since she was a fickle mistress who always betrayed him when he needed her the most. While Naruto was still pondering about the experiences which he had in last few years, a single drop of water hit him right in his forehead and trailed down to his eyes like a tear, waking him up from his thoughts abruptly. A few seconds later it started to rain heavily, cleansing the blood-ridden soil, if it could be cleansed ever in this lifetime. Everyone was shocked and amazed by the fire spectacle which Naruto demonstrated a few minutes ago. The elders, Circex, Graphia, Rias, and Naruto's own queen were staring at the symbol. However, for Akasha this was the second time when she had the pleasure to watch that symbol. Their amazement was interrupted by a clapping noise. Everyone had their eyes widened. Circex and Naruto turned immediately to watch the intruder. Before them was a man, devil in his 30s. He had long silver hair with 2 bangs extending to his shoulder. He also had a little facial hair. He wore the same armor which Circex wears to show his status as a Satan. Overall, he was someone who would be considered as devilishly handsome by the female population. Bravo. Naruto Phenex. Bravo. What a magnificent display of power. I am truly impressed. Naruto's eyes widened at first, but then he gave a smirk. He never expected him to make an appearance, he was so glad. Nobody dared to make a move. Circex just narrowed his eyes and gave a side glare to Rizavam. Rizavam Levon Lucifer, Naruto mentioned in a sing-song manner. All this just because I banged your wife, seriously, get over it. Naruto chided Rizavam in a mocking manner. The Gremories and Phenexes were still reeling from the shock of seeing Rizavam again, but then Naruto made his statement. They fell flat on their faces. Rias and her entire peerage was gaping, they just didn't know how crazy this day was going to get. Akasha had a very dark expression right now. If looks could kill, then Naruto and Rizavam, both of them would have been toast. The Gremories and the Phenexes moved a safe distance away from the murderous Akasha. They desperately wanted to live, thank you. Rizavam just gave a light chuckle. You have a great sense of humor, Naruto-kun. But fortunately I don't have a wife, he added as an afterthought. Akasha finally got herself under control after realizing that Naruto was just bullshitting. She always wondered just how his personality often would make a total 180 from serious to cynical humor. Rizavam then turned over to Graphia and Circex and gave a predatory grin, showing some of his pearl-white teeth. Circex, Graphia, you don't have to hold your guard. This is just a thought projection. Anyways, I am only here to talk with Naruto. Rizavam advised them as if they have been friends longer than he could imagine. In return, Circex just gave a smile, whereas Graphia was the definition of emotionless. She didn't want to give the son of a bitch any kind of reaction that would be totally unbecoming of her. Lord and Lady Phenex just gave a slight glare to Rizavam, hoping that he would just disappear from here. This day was already something which they were not going to forget for ages. Their son had demonstrated a Satan-level power, with that they had already enough troubles to deal with. They didn't want a rogue Satan-level devil added to that. It's pleasant to see you again, Rizavam. I never thought you would get out of your cave. Circex replied with a small gentle smile. Rizavam didn't even bother to give Circex a response, instead he kept on staring Naruto as if he had waited ages to see him. I have been giving you so many clues but you never contacted me, you break my heart, Naruto-kun. After the stimulating battle which we had last time, Rizavam said with an annoying smirk. Naruto's eyes narrowed and he asked in a high baritone, what is the meaning of this? Did I interfere with one of your plans, Rizavam? Naruto said the last part with a grin and made it almost look like a taunt. Ooh, try several, but that's not the point here. Rizavam waved his hand as if it didn't even matter in big schemes. The point is, in recent years I had no one who could stop me. Even my fellow Satans were simply so boring. I had no distractions whatsoever, but Naruto-kun, you are a very good distraction. A distraction worth losing 3,000 of my men. Rizavam had already closed the distance between Naruto and him. Searzex and Grafia were listening to the conversation closely and were analyzing it in lightning speed. They knew that Rizavam knew something about Naruto which they didn't. It was very essential for them to get hold on that data. However, now the foreplay is over. If you pry anymore in my plans, Rizavam left the threat hanging. You will do what? Kill me? Naruto asked with a chuckle. Kill you? I was going to do that anyways, eventually Rizavam said in a surprised tone as if he was deeply insulted. Though I don't want to rush it. If you don't stop prying I will burn you. I will burn the heart out of you. Rizavam screamed out. Rias almost shrieked and Issei was no different, he was terrified. Both of them thought the same thing. This devil is insane. Kiba, Akano and the rest of the peerage tried their best to cover their growing fear. However, Asia was failing that spectacularly. Rias always prided herself to handle tough situations with relative ease, but recent events demonstrated her that just how outclassed was she when compared to Naruto and her brother. Despite being in the same age group, she was more than convinced that no one except the Satans could hold a candle to Naruto. She desired that kind of power. In the underworld, power was respected the most, and she wanted power to protect her and her peerage because a storm was coming and she knew that the Phenexes and the Gremory family were smack in the middle of it. Naruto just gave a frown since he didn't want to show that just how unnerved he was. Rizavam wasn't a normal pedigree of devil. It was not his power which made him dangerous, but instead it was his mind. He was capable of extremely cruel decision if possible, which he demonstrated when he killed his own son and left his grandson to fend for himself. Rizavam did all this just because he was bored. Despite all the maturity and cruelty which Naruto gained, he would never be able to that to his own son, that is if he ever had one. Despite the uneasiness, Naruto covered his frown with a smile. I must really scare you for you to show yourself in such an unsightly way. I remember that last time you were quite cocky. Where is all that bravado? Naruto retorted to his presence as he was just a thought projection. Rizavam gave a smirk. Of course I am scared of you, but at the same time I am excited. Unlike these people, Rizavam waved both his hands pointing towards everyone who were there earlier on the battlefield. I know how to respect someone who managed to escape from the pit. You truly are someone who rose from the ashes. Searzex and Grafia's eyes widened to extreme proportions. He can't be talking about that pit, could he? Lord and Lady Phenex were also in deep shock. They didn't want to believe that their son was in such a nightmarish place. They didn't want to know what might have happened to him there. No one has ever escaped from the pit. It was the ultimate prison for supernatural beings, much more dangerous than Cocytus. Since no one has ever escaped from that prison. Naruto's and Searzek's eyes narrowed because they felt someone's presence. Someone has been listening into this conversation. You can come out now, whoever you are. Everyone turned around to where Naruto and Searzek faced. They were waiting eagerly to let the intruder show his face. A few seconds later, Ajuka made his presence known. As soon as everybody saw Ajuka, their battle stances relaxed. Naruto just had an emotionless expression, whereas Searzek gave his first genuine smile of the day. Rizavam just grinned. Long time no see, Ajuka-chan. Ajuka just sparred a glance towards Rizavam and then gave his entirety of the attention to Naruto Phenex. He had been listening on the conversation for quite some time now, and oh boy. This was a power talk. A battle of words between Satan-level opponents, each trying to get what they want in presence of extremely strong individuals like Akasha and Grafia. Truly, he didn't want to be a part of this, but for the survival of Underworld it was necessary that they knew about Naruto, because he knew this man was going to have a large amount of influence in the future of Underworld. So, you are the one who escaped from the pit. I could have never imagined that it was someone so young, Ajuka said in a calm voice. You mind telling me how you managed that? Ajuka added as if he was asking for a request, but everybody there knew that it was more of a demand. Issei was getting extremely confused. He didn't have a clue of what was going on. What in hell is the pit? Ajuka gave a glance towards Rias and her peerage, then he gave out a sigh. He just didn't know what was wrong with Searzek to involve such clueless devillings in a talk like this. Well, they were only watching. At the least they know that they don't belong here. In Greek mythology there is often a discussion of a pit where notorious individuals are sent to put away all their immortal life in a hellish cage. These individuals include devils, angels and even gods. This pit is commonly known as the Tartarus. Rizavam finished the sentence for Ajuka, who in return just gave a glare to the notorious Satan. Now everybody was staring at Naruto. He had the undivided attention of every person who was standing there. Akasha just gave a sigh. She knew that this small detail was going to get out sooner or later. The very reason she decided to join his peerage was because she was present when the events happened. She was right outside that deep pit when a phoenix rose from the ashes. At that very moment she knew that this man was going to do something great and she wanted to be a part of that. Ajuka continued to stare at Naruto, expecting him to answer his earlier question. In fact, everybody was staring at him except his queen. Naruto returned the stare for some time but eventually gave a coy smile and snickered. A few months back nobody gave a damn about me, but suddenly now I am Mr. Sex. Everybody wants me. Ajuka just raised his eyebrows, whereas the rest of the entire group just fell flat on their faces. Searzex and Graphia were impassive since they were no use to not getting any answers out of him, whereas Akasha just gave out another sigh and shook her head, which was already facing downwards towards her feet. She sometimes regretted being his queen. Naruto's general cockiness and impassiveness mixed with some cynical humor always pissed other people off. Lord and Lady Phenex didn't react much, but they were impressed that their son wasn't a pushover when it came to handling things through his mouth instead of using fists. Rizavam was watching the entire spectacle with amusement clearly written on his face, but just like every good thing, this small conversation has to end. How sad. And he was having too much fun too. Rizavam coughed a little to shift everybody's attention from Naruto to him. I am really glad that we had this conversation, Naruto-kun. It's sad that I have to leave, but remember this, Naruto-kun, a storm is coming and if you don't get out of my way. Rizavam left the threat hanging and he started to disintegrate into millions of golden particles, leaving the Satans worried about the future of the underworld. Naruto just gave a dark chuckle and said, catch you later. No, you won't. Rizavam chirped before disappearing completely. For a few seconds there was total silence, then Searzex gave a look to the Phenex family and gave a small glare towards Naruto and said, we need to talk, immediately. Ajuka just gave a nod showing that he agreed with Searzek's sentiments. Even the heads of the Gremory and Naruto's parents agreed with him. Naruto just gave out a sigh to show his discomfort, but then he took out a mobile phone out of nowhere and dialed few numbers and clicked the phone shut. What was that for? Searzex asked inquisitively. He was very curious. I just asked my bishop to haul his ass over here. We can talk as soon as he gets over here. No, we don't have that much time. It is imperative that we talk as soon as we can. Searzex pressed further. He is right, Naruto-kun. Rizavam isn't someone you should take lightly. Lord Phenex added as a forethought. Okay, I guess it's fine. Naruto replied in a surrendered tone. He wasn't exactly in a mood to have a serious talk. This battle was draining not just physically but mentally as well. Dead Horse Point, Utah, USA. A person of about 6 feet was resting about halfway around the cliff which he was climbing. He had a smile on his face as if it didn't even matter to him that he was 600 feet about the ground without any sort of rope or protection. When looked closer, the man had tanned skin with long black hair which was tied in a pony, and there were 2 bangs which cascaded down to his cheeks. He was wearing a tight black shirt and a 3/4 blue pants. The said man looked around and frowned because he realized he would have to make a sideway jump since there was no good footing above, so if he didn't made that jump then he would be stuck on the cliff forever. After a second he gave a smirk. I like challenges. With that thought he pulled his body a little in the opposite direction which gave him a solid footing, and then he thrust himself sideways and made a jump of about 15 feet. It looked like he was flying. By some divine grace he was able to land the other side of the cliff. He felt like patting himself in the back, but then things went to hell. The man slipped and lost his footing. He started to slip further down, but before he could meet an untimely demise, his hand stretched and grabbed a well-placed protruding rock which served as holding and preventing him from falling 600 feet to his death. The man just gave a chuckle to show his discomfort. In fact, it looked like he was having fun while he was dangling from a cliff. Finally, after few more breathtaking moments later, the said man managed to reach solid ground. He was panting a little because he was tired. After all, climbing an entire cliff without chakra was exhausting, but he needed the training and he also wanted to do something fun since he was on a vacation, but like every god thing, even a small vacation must come to an end. He knew that the second he heard sounds of rotor from far off. His suspicions were proven correct the moment he saw a helicopter from the Phenex Consolidated ridden proudly on its tail, making its way towards him. He just looked at that helicopter curiously when a moment later a man in a suit opened the door of the helicopter and took out a rocket launcher and aimed it right in front of him. The rocket made its way forward and stuck a fraction of a second later, but there was no resultant blast, no nothing. The rocket just stayed there even after the perpetrators were long gone. The fairly handsome guy just gave out chuckle and sighed. He gave a glance to the said rocket and crouched to remove the tail end of the rocket in a smooth snap. Inside there was cool pair of sunglasses. He couldn't help but give another chuckle, and he finally wore the piece of spectacles. The sunglasses shined blue and various information started to appear on the lenses. Good morning, Mr. Bishop. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, involves the recovery of vital information on the rogue Satan-level devil known as Rizavum Levan Lucifer from the infobank in the Phenex Consolidated and delivering it safely to the Phenex estate. You have 3 hours for the completion of this assignment. This mission is an immediate concern and the king expects it to be taken care of as soon as possible. A robotic female voice started to explain everything in a monotonous voice. Naruto's voice interrupted the generic female voice as he continued to chide his bishop and Hashirama. The next time you go on holiday, please be good enough to let me know where you're going. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds. The record finally stopped. Hashirama just gave a smirk. If I let you know where I am going, I won't be on holiday. With that he threw the sunglasses as far as he can while the sunglasses promptly caught on fire and soon blasted like a firework. Phenex Mansion. Lord Phenex, Lord Gremory and the 2 Satans including Graphia were at the main hall of the Phenex estate, which was decorated with the most expensive materials present in the underworld with various tapestries, candles, and chandeliers with sofas made of the most expensive leather. They were waiting on Naruto and his queen Akasha since they went to clean up after the fight as they were covered in blood and sweat. Rias and the rest of the ladies and gentlemen were not included in this conversation since everyone knew that whatever they would be sharing will be privileged information and will be distributed on a strict-to-know basis. Rias was a little pissed about that, but she understood despite being a high-class devil she wasn't powerful enough to handle that kind of privileged information. At least not yet. Ajuka was getting a little restless. It had already been an hour since the whole debacle with Rizavum, and he was getting impatient to know what was actually going on. Whatever you are hiding I will find out. Naruto Phenex, Ajuka thought as a frown marred his face. Soon his patience was rewarded as both Naruto and Akasha made their entrance. Naruto was wearing a black 3-piece suit whereas Akasha donned the earlier Victorian dress looking as regal as ever. Let's not waste any more time with formalities. After all, ladies and gentlemen, time is money. Naruto mentioned that with a small smile, trying to be as polite as he can be. Everybody seemed to agree with his sentiment, and as expected Ajuka was the first to raise his voice. What do you think about Rizavum as a devil? We know all there is to know about him, Ajuka-chan. Sirzex immediately interjected. He didn't want to waste his time on such things which he already knew. Do we? Akuka asked in a blank stare. Both Sirzex and Ajuka locked their eyes for a few seconds, but finally the Crimson Satan relented. Ajuka just gave a nod to continue from where the conversation was halted. Naruto immediately understood and started to speak in a calm tone. Rizavum is not just a devil, he is a spider. He sits motionless, but that web has 1,000 radiations, and he knows well every quiver of each of them. He does little himself. He only plans, but his agents are numerous and splendidly organized. Is there a crime to be done? From a simple black operation to red operation, the word is passed to the professor. The matter is organized and carried out smoothly. His organization is far better than all the Satans combined. Gentlemen, this thing known as Rizavum is the greatest threat to all of the 3 factions. There is simply no denying that fact. He is a genius, a philosopher, an abstract thinker. He has a brain of the first order. Naruto concluded with a grin. By the time Naruto was done explaining Rizavum as a devil, everyone had their eyebrows raised. They were shocked and they knew that a storm was coming. Sirzex and Ajuka regretted to allow him to run free for so long. They never thought that he would have an entire organization of people at his beck and call. Rizavum has changed a lot from what I knew of him before, Sirzex muttered very quietly. Do you have any idea of what he is planning, Naruto-kun? This time it was Naruto's own father. For him this was an eye-opener. He always believed that after what his family suffered through the previous war, he thought that this would be the end, but now it seemed that another war was right around the corner. I don't know, but I do know that whatever he is planning it is still 2 or 3 years away from coming to fruition. Naruto replied in a grave tone. Everyone gave out a disappointed sigh after hearing that. If they didn't know what Rizavum was planning, then there was no way that they would be able to stop him from bringing his plans to fruition. You have met him before, haven't you? In person? Sirzex asked in an inquisitive tone. Naruto gritted his teeth at that memory but soon managed to control his emotions, but this slip wasn't missed by any of the occupants. Yes, I have. I was only 10-year-old back then when I met that monster of a devil. We only danced for only 15 minutes, but I knew we had something special. Can you tell us what happened? Tell me how that encounter went. Sirzex pressed further. I can do better. I will show you how it went. Naruto closed his eyes. Everybody was staring at him, then suddenly everybody's unconscious was dragged to a space where everything was colored white. This is his mindscape. Lord Gremory mused. He was impressed. Not every devil could project his mindscape like that. Heck, only few ever managed to access their mind. This is really impressive. I never thought that someone's mindscape could be projected like this. Lord Gremory couldn't help but compliment him. This boy no man was clearly ages ahead of his peers, not just in skill but also mentally as well as spiritually. Naruto just smiled at Lord Gremory's compliment. He liked the guy, he was a quiet person but loved his family very much. Then suddenly the white space was invaded by various images which started to roll like a film. This is where it all began. Flashback. A young boy with shaggy blonde hair was resting inside a crater. He was none other than Naruto himself, and he was bleeding from head to toe. At this moment he cursed gods themselves. The man responsible for his pathetic state was drinking wine from a chalice as if he wasn't even a bother to him, and Naruto didn't blame him. At an age of 10 he was barely able to use any of his techniques since his body couldn't handle such strain. Rizavum was enjoying his wine with his right-hand man Euclid Lucifuge. Euclid was the younger brother of Graphia and is a part of Old Satan faction. He has long silver hair which was tied in braids, and he wore clothing made of costly accessories. He looked around 25 to 30 years in age, but clearly he was way older than that. The wounds which Naruto bore started to close slowly. With that he finally managed to get up from the crater. He was still panting and many of his wounds were not healed, but he was excited. He never thought that he would meet someone so powerful and intellectual in this world. "Can we have a go again?" Naruto asked, devoid of any emotion. Rizavum just gave an insane chuckle and threw his chalice and rushed forward. He vanished from where he was standing. Naruto managed to see the incoming attack but was not able to dodge it. Thanks to that he managed to fly good 20 yards before his back hit a tree. Naruto's eyes glazed over and he was going into unconsciousness. "I refuse to go like this. I refuse." "Ah, yes. I was wondering what would break first." Rizavum vanished again and appeared right in front of Naruto and lifted him high above his head using both hands. "Your spirit, or your body?" With that, Rizavum brought Naruto's body down to his knee in a swift motion which dislocated Naruto's spine with a thwack. Naruto's eyes widened with pain, but he refused to scream and give any kind of satisfaction to the rogue Satan. "I guess I finally have my answer to that," Rizavum snickered. "Master, he might pose a threat in future. Maybe we should get rid of him," Euclid mentioned in a very serious tone, because this was the first time he saw someone so young able to stop his master for more than 10 minutes. Even high-class devil are not able to achieve this feat. "Don't talk such nonsense, Euclid. I would rather have him sent to the pit," Rizavum chided in a friendly manner. Euclid immediately went tense and he couldn't help but question his master for this decision. "Master Rizavum, wouldn't it be just better to kill him?" Rizavum gave the look to Euclid as if he was deeply insulted by his own servant. "Euclid, I think that death is so definite, so final, but life has a lot of possibilities. In fact, it has infinite possibilities. I would like to see what this boy does with it. Do you think he will conquer this prison?" Rizavum just gave a knowing smile. "Yes, the Phenex shall rise." Flashback ends. Everyone who saw the truth of this confrontation had their body frozen with a chill due to sheer brutality shown by Rizavum. This devil was something else. Now thanks to him, Naruto was also something different from the average devil. Akasha's eyes shimmered due to unshed tears. She refused to cry when her Naruto didn't even shed a tear in such an incident. She refused to show weakness. Akasha knew some of the details, but she could have never thought that this is how it went down. Ajuka and Sirzex were stunned. Sirzex for the first time in his life knew the depth of his failure. Despite being a Satan, he was not able to protect a single child from Rizavum. He was not able to save his sister from an unhappy marriage. He had failed everywhere it mattered. Lord Phenex was the one who was affected the most. He was the father of this child. He couldn't bear to watch him like that. The only thing which he was glad about was that his wife wasn't here to watch this. Ajuka just pressed the shoulder of his longtime friend gently with his hands to give him some kind of support, but the questions weren't over. He still needed answer to one of his main questions. How did you escape from Tartarus? With that he dropped the bomb. Thanks for watching.